He's snaking the target with the islid. One of the Cobras, the Cobra section, peels off, freaking lasers us with its pod. So the laser goes down me and my entire patrol and is bouncing off the last two dudes. And I was like, everybody get the fuck down. Kevin's freaking starts lassoing the fucking sky at that point, grabbed him, yanked him down, and they freaking first bird opened up on us with freaking rockets. My name is Ryan Kuperus. I served in the United States Marine Corps from August of 2000 till about September of 2017. I grew up in Newark, New York, which is about half hour outside of Rochester. I grew up on a dairy farm. I wouldn't say that we were poor, because I went to a private school till I was in 8th grade, but I think that's about where most of my parents' money went. I grew up working as soon as I could walk. My earliest memories were being outside in the barn. Farming consumed most of my childhood, farming and sports made me who I am today. Just my work ethic and examples I had growing up. Probably would have been classified as the bad kid, maybe. My mom would say the naughty kid, even though I told her she's done calling me that. And I was the guy who got caught retaliating when I got messed with at school. So I was the one inevitably getting in trouble. So that's why they would classify me as that. I had a grandfather who served in Korea. My grandparents came here from Holland after World War II. My grandfather's family got told that one of the sons needs to go serve their new country in Korea. So he volunteered to do it. He didn't even know English when he went to boot camp. And he served in Korea, got 2 Bronze Stars, and really never talked to anyone about it after that. I'm probably one of the few people he did. After I was in the Marine Corps for a little while, before he died, I'd say that definitely influenced me a little bit. My other grandfather was in the Coast Guard. No real push, really, for me to go in the military, but I kind of, as I was, in high school and whatnot, I was good at football and lacrosse, and I definitely could have played in college for either of those sports, but to me, the signs kind of were clear. I could be a farmer, or I can, join the military and do something else. So my junior year of high school, my dad asked me if I wanted to go into business with him, and I told him no. Sometimes I regret that a little bit, because farming is a very simple but hard life, but I definitely enjoyed it. But I told him no. And he asked me what I was going to do, and I told him I was going to join the military. At the time, I thought maybe it was going to be the Army, but when I met the Army recruiter, he was a little pushy, so we decided not to do that. And we saw the Marine recruiter the next day, and his uniform looked a whole heck of a lot better. He was a way cooler dude, so decided to join the Marine Corps. I think the last time I actually talked to my recruiter was probably like 5 years ago. And I know for a fact he was just happy that we all passed the PIS test and could go to boot camp, for starters anyways. My experience with him, though, in all honesty, was good. Back then, when you're young, you don't realize that, hey, not all Marines are infantrymen, right? You just think all Marines are these, badass dudes that go out and slay bodies. I didn't realize that my recruiter was a mechanic in the air wing or something like that, right? You don't know this stuff. But the recruiters are super cool guys. Go to the pulley functions. There's dudes who went to boot camp who already knew all of that base knowledge you're supposed to know, right? Like leadership traits and, things of this nature, like the rank structure. He didn't push any of that on us, probably because he knew that would turn us off and make us not want to join. And when we got to boot camp, we were lost on that front. But I never even saw a Full Metal Jacket before I went to boot camp. So he kind of screwed me on that one too. He gave us what we wanted, right? We wanted to go in the Marines and go in the infantry and, to slay bodies. And that's where he put us. I really didn't have a problem with boot camp, to be honest with you. My biggest issue is homesickness, really. You really don't have time to be homesick. I was pretty used to getting yelled at, whether it was from, coaches or my parents or my mom, really, in general. And I was used to hard work from, growing up on the farm. We wake up at 4:30 to milk cows. During the summertime, you milk cows. We go throw hay bales all day long, milk cows again, throw some more hay bales, go to sleep, wash, rinse, repeat. So boot camp was kind of easy on that front. Wake up, go to chow, right? Do the boot camp thing. Well, actually, I never even got a phone call home. Let's start with that one, right? You get the phone call home. I never got a phone call home. I was trying to do what everyone said, right? Don't volunteer for anything. And in doing so, I ended up sweeping up the barbershop after we got our little haircuts there. And then I never got a phone call home. I never got to make a phone call home till my 18th birthday, when I was like a month and a half in already. And they like called me in there and were like, hey, it's your birthday today. And my grandfather, I got a Red Cross message because his kidney shut down. He was getting dialysis. And I was like, hey, I never got a phone call home when I got here. So can I like call my mom, let her know I'm okay? And they're like, yeah, you should probably do that. So I got like a 1-minute phone call. Like probably the crappiest moment of boot camp was that they ran my Scantron through the wrong like scanner on one of the knowledge tests. And I came out like a 10%, even though I knew every single answer, like, 100% of the answers, and like, getting thrashed, yelled at, like, for being an idiot. And I was squad leader too, so I'm like supposed to set the example, whatever that meant back then, for everyone else. And we failed. How'd this happen? It was me and the guide actually that happened to. And then they ran through the right way, and then I got a, 100%, and everything was all good after that. But, you're always worried about like the stuff that they tell you to worry about, right? Like I was worried about getting stress fractures. Well, in my brain, like it never occurred to me that like, hey, I'm used to tromping around on the farm, all day, every day wearing boots, which most American kids don't, have, they don't wear them. So I didn't really have to worry about any of that. I was in good shape when I got there. They always, play mind games with you. So you're always worried about like, if I don't make this hike, then I'm going to get dropped, right? Like you're scared, like best way to leave the island is to graduate, which it is, obviously. And even then it wasn't like difficult. It was just getting used to the Marine Corps way of living life. So I got a couple of moments that I remember, maybe because it's unbelievable. All right, so you're at the rifle range, we get these bag nasties, like these Jimmy Dean trays, right? We're like, hell yeah, we're gonna get to eat something. Drill instructors sit us down, they're like, open up your sandwich. So we open up the sandwich, and it was like ham and cheese on there, right? And they're like, pull the meat and cheese off the sandwich. So I'm like, sweet, at least we're gonna get to eat this. They're like, throw it behind you. Throw it behind you. And then they're like, pull out your Oreos. So we pulled out these Oreos, right? Put them on the bread. And then they made us take our mustard packet and put it on the Oreos. Put it back on the sandwich, take one bite out of the sandwich, throw it behind us, and then take our apple, because we need to have fruit, take one bite of the apple, throw it behind us, and then guide squad leaders collect up the chow. That was it. That was lunch. It was the most disappointing thing, man. You're like, come on, dude. I want it. Like, man, I'm hungry. I came out of boot camp weighing 205 pounds. I'm a 250-pound man right now. Like my deployment weight, even at Recon, was 225. The other thing I remember, the dudes who popped on the piss test. It was like the end of like first phase already. Called all like 6-8 dudes up there who all popped on the piss test. And one of the kids had the nerve to ask the drill instructor, like, hey, our parents sent us packages. Can we like get the goodies out of that package? And they're like, absolutely you can. So they brought out this Foot Locker just full of whatever BS their people's families had sent them that they weren't supposed to, Oreos and all that. Dumped it in a pile. And then the drill instructor started stomping on it with their boots, right? Like spit shine, jungle boots, spit and dip, spit into it, right? And they're like, you want to eat it? Get on your hands and knees and eat it, you fucking pigs, right? And they were up there and they're like, now squeal like a pig. And they're like, right? And they're all in a circle. And they made this kid, he was like the tubbiest kid in our platoon. They made him get up there and squeal like a pig too, just because he was fat. And they're up there on their hands and knees eating it. They're dumping water in it, spit and dip spit in there. And I just like sat there like, your face forward, not looking, trying to not look at them. But like in my mind, I'm like, what would possess you to think to ask for that stuff, right? Like you're no go, man. Like I just wouldn't do it. So, I mean, it was funny. So my first unit was 2-6 Golf Company. I met my squad leader at our SOI graduation. And the first thing, like, there was dudes, they're like calling out, hey, you're going here, you're going here, you're going here. And then they're like, hey, you guys are going to 2-6. And then this corporal comes walking up to me and he said, how many pull-ups can you do? And I was like, 13. He's like, huh, we're going to fix that. And I'm like, roger that, Corporal. You know, or actually II, because no one, like SOI, they don't tell you like the hacks. Like you can say you can say, you know, roger that, any of that stuff, you know. So I'm like, II. So I got meritoriously promoted to Lance Corporal out of SOI 2. We get over there, go over to the main side to L Street. There was just a bunch of NCOs waiting for us, and they just start like yelling at us. It's like going into the Coliseum because everybody knows there's a boot drop going on, right? So everyone's standing on the freaking, standing outside the barracks, right? First, second, third deck, right? Heckling you know, like fresh meat just showed up, you know, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be crazy. So since I was Lance Corporal, I had a dude who was a Lance Corporal, who was my roommate. His name's Chris Ortega, and he was from Mexico. And you know, so we show up, right? We get this in-brief from the first sergeant, right? Meet our squad leaders and all that. And I'm like, I'm a Lance Corporal, and there's a whole bunch of Lance Corporals over here. So I go and talk to them, and they're like, get away from us. And I'm like, okay. And then they're calling me a boot too, and I have no idea what they're talking about, right? And they're like, yeah, you know, fuck you, boot. And I'm like, all right, cool, you know? And probably by the end of the first day, one of them came up to me and was like, you need to understand, we're senior Lance Corporals. And I was like, you need to understand, I'm a Lance Corporal, you're a Lance Corporal, right? E3 is an E3. Like, I don't care. That was not the way. I got thrashed a lot. My first thrashing came because the very first day after we were in the fleet, we're out in the quad, all the new guys all the boots are online, ready, step, look over, pick it up, right? And I didn't pick up a cigarette butt, right? And one of the NCOs, actually, I think I remember who it was, but anyways, the dude comes out to me, he's like, hey, you stepped over that cigarette butt, you need to pick it up. And I was like, look, dude, I don't smoke, so I'm not picking it up. And he's like, are you disobeying a direct order from an NCO? And I was like, no, Corporal, right? He's like, then pick up the cigarette butt. And I was like, I do not smoke, therefore I will not pick up the cigarette butt. And by this time I had 3 other NCOs on me, and I was starting getting the thrashing of my life. I picked up that cigarette butt, but it's probably the last one I ever picked up, because I quickly found out that there is this pecking order, right? Senior Lance Corporals and all that stuff. But I also was a better fighter than the senior Lance Corporal, so I made my way with my fists. I would not take a thrashing from a senior Lance Corporal. I would make them go get an NCO to thrash me, which is really a bad attitude, by the way. Don't do that. Like, not the recommended way, because I got thrashed like a lot. One of them that I fought was purely because of mistake, because another guy had teabagged him, and while he was sleeping on his ruck, and then when he came to, everyone's laughing at him. He thought I did it, so he wanted to go to the tree line and you know, and duke it out. So we went out there and we duked it out. I beat him down pretty good, and that was the end of that story. The other thing is that they just started the MCMAP program, probably January 2001 when I got to 2-6. And our first sergeant was like in the very first like instructor class. So this guy loved doing MCMAP. So it was very convenient to do company PT where you're doing pugil sticks and boxing and ground fighting. I found that the best way to make a good impression on people is to be extremely violent, right? Like, violence rules the day, especially in the grunts in the early 2000s, right? And 2, that if I had an issue with a squad leader or something like that, I just need to end up getting into the ring, whether that be pugil sticks or boxing or whatever, and then hit him in the head as hard as I could. So that's what I tried to do. I was a little bit of a hothead when I was younger, and actually that led up for like a lot of my career. I was a hothead, and I solved probably too many problems with my fists instead of like my brain. We went up to 29 Palms for CACs, and I got told to separate trash. My platoon sergeant's trash, right? I didn't know it was his. A senior Lance Corporal gave me an MRE, right? I was like, separate this trash. And I'm like, I'm not separating your trash, right? Like, I don't consider that to be a lawful order, you know? And he's like, well, it's staff sergeant's trash. And I'm like, I don't give a shit whose trash it is. I'm not doing it, right? Like, I am not separating another man's personal MRE trash. Not happening, right? And then so bam, you know, like a lightning rod, right? Squad leaders around me, I'm getting thrashed. I'd be in my barracks room, you know, at lunchtime, and I'd like, you just hear Coop or Kuperus, because I can't pronounce my last name right, because it's Kuperus, right? And then I'd like go down there and like, you got 30 seconds, you know, or 1 minute to go tell us what the methods of employing machine guns are. They'd say, hey, what are the methods of employing machine guns, right? It's like pick them deep, you know? And I didn't know it. They're like, you got 1 minute to find it out. So I'd go down and hope that somebody was in their room that would tell me what it was and give me the answer. So when I ran back, I didn't get thrashed. Most of the time it didn't happen. So I ran back, got thrashed. They taught me what it was. I get thrashed some more, and then I get told to go away. And I really never had a problem with it, honestly. It taught me, like, I still remember all those acronyms right now. Most days I can't remember to tie my shoes, but I remember those acronyms, you know? Within the last 2 years, I just started drinking coffee, and I rarely drink regular coffee. It's usually like, you know, like the mushroom coffee, like mud water or everyday dose or something like that. And I mean, had a wicked, like most guys, a wicked caffeine habit, just never started drinking coffee, and I'll tell you why. When I first got to the fleet, did morning formations, and my platoon sergeant would be out there with a couple of the, not necessarily squad leaders, a couple of the other platoon sergeants, maybe a couple of squad leaders or whatever, company gunny. They're all standing there with their coffee cups, talking shit to you, right? And I was in boat company when we were in 2-6. And we went to the pool, and there's two of the platoon sergeants in the company gunny in the shallow end, doggy paddling for their life. Can't swim. I'm going to myself, we're in boat company. You've done multiple deployments with this company. Shouldn't you know how to swim, right? But you stand out in front of this formation, talking crap to us because we're the junior guys, but you can't lead yourself. They're poor leaders. And I vowed to myself that I will never be that kind of leader, right? So I never touched coffee ever in my career, ever. So there was a point in my career where I realized that I couldn't solve all my problems by being hard-headed, right, and with my fists, because when I was a young infantryman, I was very much the dude that was like, infantry rules. If you weren't infantry, you weren't nothing. Realize that, you know, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I had to learn how to network and hustle, and I had to learn leadership. I did solve a lot of the problems throughout my career with my fists. But I did make myself a solemn vow that I would never assault anyone at the rank of gunnery sergeant. And I didn't. In uniform. So all other ranks, I hit multiple people. I mean, I went in the Marine Corps at the age of 17. So by the time I hit the fleet, I was 18. I was 19 when we did my first deployment. Right after, 9/11 happened when we were out at Fort Bragg training, our last like training event before we chopped to the MEU. And then I was lucky enough to work for the Force platoon on that MEU, the Maritime Special Purpose Force. Things were way easier back then. I mean, Marine Corps is easy, war is easy. Pre-war, pre all this technology was a lot easier, right? But there was a lot of piss poor leaders in the Marine Corps at that time. My squad leader was good. But we were hamstrung by a succession, like, of bad leadership in the unit. You know what I mean? And when we worked for the Force guys, right, I was like, oh man, I gotta get the hell out of the grunts. I mean, they're all everything that you would want to be in a Marine. They're all freaking jacked. They're all freaking. They knew how to shoot, move, communicate. Right? Everyone on the boat gave them respect. Dudes are wearing flight suits, doing whatever they wanted within reason, obviously. So I'm like, man, I gotta get out of the grunts. You know, one of the guys in that platoon is one of my best friends right now. Like, he's my brother. Spent the worst days of my life with him. So on 9/11, we were doing a trench clearing range at Fort Bragg. We did our, you do your dry run. So we did our dry run, came back, we were jamming up for our live run, and the dude had like a wind-up radio, the Humvee driver, and I was like, hey, you guys need to hear this. On the radio, they were talking about a plane hitting the first tower. And then like, we jocked up, we were in the middle of our live run, and they called the range cold. And we went and like, hey, a plane just hit the second tower. We're under attack. Like, we're out at Fort Bragg, right? It's like, I think I had a cell phone with a broken screen at that time. No way to charge it out there, like 2000, obviously 2001. And we were in the freaking battalion fighting position in the middle of Fort Bragg, right? Because they're worried we're going to get attacked. Like, now, obviously, being a young Marine, you're like, oh man, we're going to war, right? Like, oh man, someone's going to attack us right here. We're on a triple strand concertina wire in the middle of Fort Bragg, which is ridiculous, by the way, right? But like, at that time, our country hadn't been attacked since Pearl Harbor. You know what I mean? So I guess it was a warranted reaction, This just got like really real, right? We're about to we're going to war. Like, we're going to the MU, so we're definitely going to war. We deployed in February of 2002. I think probably one of the takeaways from that MU is that we set the record for most consecutive days on ship since World War II. I think it was like, 147, 9, something like that, days in Modlock. Like, we did 2 or 3 beer days. We're the Maritime Special Purpose Force, right? So we're like, this is like, this is a MU SOC, man. Like, if anyone's going to get to go do something, the freaking Force Recon platoon, the MSPF, right? They're going to go do it. We went to Camp Lemonade in Djibouti, and I think we're the first unit in there, or at least the first unit in a long time, because there was nothing there. It's all Gucci'd out now. Then we went to Masira, what I didn't know at the time, because we stood up and stood down for a bunch of missions, right? So I'm a Lance Corporal, right? I don't know my head from my ass, right? And I just got this, interim security clearance. So I can't go in the skiff, not that they would let me in there anyways. But we stood up and stood down for a bunch of missions when we were in Masira, right? And the Force guys are like, oh man, it was almost there, right? And I'm like, man, just another day on Masira, right? Like, we had this joke, right? Bohica, bend over, here it comes again. Like, that was the joke, running joke of the deployment. Like, we had a dude who was really good at drawing, so he would draw Bohica on t-shirts, and so we're on Masira, standing up and standing down for these missions. And we're building the floors and doors for all the tents that us and the Air Force people and all these people are living in. What I didn't realize until I read this book, Relentless Strike, I'm reading about the early days of Afghanistan and all that, and I'm reading about Masira, right? And I'm like, holy crap, this is when we were on Masira, right? And it talks about QRF being staged there, blah, blah. And like, quite literally, I called my buddy up, right? My best friend, Kevin. I'm like, bro, the book, we're in the book. Like, we almost did get in the fight. He goes, yeah, I know that. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know that back then, right? I'm a Lance Corporal, bro. He's like, dude, we told you we almost got to go do a QRF, but we didn't, right? So like, that was like the motif of the deployment. It was like the almost there, you know what I mean? So after that, I went to the invasion. So when we got home from that first deployment, I got promoted to corporal. You get promoted on the first, or the second if it's meritorious. I got promoted at the end of November of 2002, some random day before Thanksgiving. I don't remember what it was. That's because my promotion warrant had been sitting on the desk up in the S1 shop until my platoon sergeant checked out of the unit, right? So another thing about, poor leadership. My thing is that I'm a big guy with a loud personality. I went on that first deployment weighing 205 pounds and came back weighing 275 because I jacked so much steel to relieve the anger of not doing it, the frustration. That's important because of what a letdown it was. Right, so here we are. We fly to Kuwait, right? One of the few East Coast units, infantry units, to go to the invasion. And my company commander at the time, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, he came out and he's like, we're going to war, right? And we're like, woo, right? But in my brain already, I was like, who says that? That's obviously we're going to war. Like, this is awesome. This is like what we want. You know what I mean? There's a lot of unknowns because Saddam Hussein and, right, like, he's got all these chemical weapons and all this stuff, you know what I mean? So we're at Camp Commando, we're on Camp Guard, and right, everyone's staging up to go into Iraq, and we're on Camp Guard. I'm like, dude, we're not going into Iraq. This is gonna completely suck. Like, we're gonna miss the whole invasion. So the night that W comes on, you know, the president comes on, gives the shock and awe speech and all that. I'm sitting on a ECP, on Camp Commando in Kuwait, like going, oh man, I'm gonna miss the war. We did a shift changeover and we're walking back to our tent. And this other squad leader, this dude Wrigley's like, and I don't think Saddam can hit us with anything down here. And within 1 minute of that, like, a seersucker came in under radar and hit about 50 yards from that ECP I was just at. Freaking the sirens are going off, more missiles are coming in, Scuds were the Patriots are knocking them out of the sky. Definitely, they're like blowing them right out of the air over our heads, right? So we're putting our gas masks on. This one kid in the first squad, he was puking, coming out of his gas mask. We're like, oh man, shit just got real, right? But now we're still gonna be stuck here, right? So like the dang sirens went off like 20 times the first day, right? To the point where we'd be in the chow hall, sirens would go off and we'd just stay in there eating, right? And like everyone's laying, like they're in a bunker, they're like laying on the ground like this. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do, man. Yeah, if you get hit by a missile, even if you're in that bunker, you're dead, right? You might as well eat some chow. You know what I mean? And like this mass sergeant comes in, remember the voice emitters, right? They got the voice emitters, like, why are you guys in here? You guys need to be out by the bunker. We're like, dude, get out of here, bro. Like, if a missile hits the bunker, we're gonna die in here too. You're dead, we're dead, we're all fucking dead, man. Like, look at the kill radius of these things. At least if I'm gonna die eating some chow, right? Like, give me a last meal here, you know? So, and then you look around the chow hall and there's weapons laying there, Kevlar. So we just gathered them up, put them by our table. And like when they came in, they're like, can I get my rifle? I'm like, oh, what's your serial number? There you go. Here's your helmet. You know, like, don't forget that next time. Probably be important, you know? So we actually get called, our platoon is going to attach to Echo Company with Sergeant Major Zeke Foose, or First Sergeant Zeke Foose at the time. So we did end up getting to go into Iraq. We flew in the next day. So now we're like, cool, fly through burning oil fields, right? We're like, this is gonna be awesome. Most action that we had was like a couple pop shots. We got mortared, right? Like we passed by Nazaria. We're like, oh, look, there's Nazaria, right? Like, oh, sweet. We're in this huge convoy, probably like not far away from where Jessica Lynch got freaking nabbed up. We're in this huge convoy and they had, you know, engineer tape out there in the desert. So we're like, convoy stops. I actually saw the Force platoon that was on the deployment before come rolling out of the freaking middle of the desert. IFABs, windows down, right? Schmogs on, right? And I'm like, hey, what's up, fellas? Like, oh, yeah, hey, oh, good, you guys made it here. Like, yeah, I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're looking for people to kill. I'm like, man, I got to join Force Recon. Like, I didn't after my first deployment because they said I would have had to extend, but none of my buddies who went to snipers or recon had to extend because of the invasion. So, not a smart move on my part, in hindsight, obviously. But we see this engineer tape in the desert, so I go take a leak on it because that's what you usually do where that is, right? And, you know, garrison times. Well, some dude starts yelling at us at me, and one of my team leaders walked right out in the middle of an Iraqi minefield. They're like, hey, you're in the middle of a minefield. We're like, oh, shit. Like, not cool, man. Like, all right, hey, let me pinch my eye, get done taking a piss, like, turn around, like, here, I'll just follow my footsteps, like, out of there. We were in some fighting position one time, like, on this airfield doing security, and this kid in our platoon, we're doing stand to, like, good little crunchies, goes running out in front of the dang friendly lines, screaming, got his mop suit on, pulling at his neck and stuff, and we're all like this. I'm like, gas mask, you know, like, we're about to die, man. He's freaking out. He had a scorpion in his hood that was stinging him in the back of the neck. I mean, the invasion for me was like a really just huge disappointment. Like, it really was. Did some airfield security, secured some ASPs, we did some patrols and stuff like that, but we never got into like really highly kinetic firefights. And it was like just a huge freaking letdown, you know? And I was just like, man, that was it, you know? This is bullshit, man. This sucks. Like a couple pop shots, right? Figured out that camels go down like deer. When you hit them with a 50 cal, that was cool, you know? This is my war, man. We passed by all the area, like we're in Al Kut, right? When the LA, when they had the blue on blue LAR, like we seen them dudes like come rolling in with, you know, casualties and stuff like that. And, you know, but just, we didn't really do anything, man. Like we did, I mean, more than most, I guess, right? At least we were there. but we just didn't get into the shit the way we wanted to get into the shit. Like as you as an infantryman want to get into it, right? You know, like this is what like the pinnacle of all my training. Plus, I'm a 20-year-old squad leader, corporal. Right? I got the world by the balls here. You know, this is like the pinnacle of an infantryman's career, and it was just kind of a little bit of a letdown. We came home literally for like we were home like 2 months, 2 weeks to a month, and they're like, "You guys are UDP in the Okie." So we went out to Okie. While we were out there, I actually got to take my squad down and work for the task force down in Zamboanga City for the SOTF. And that was still, even to this day, one of the coolest jobs I did in the Marine Corps. Like they moved it from a company mission to a squad mission. They just moved in this little base. And I worked for a SF major. He was a Citadel football guy, so we jacked steel all the time. I rewrote the SOPs for the convoy security and site security there. Got taught evasive driving by some of the SF guys and shooting and all that stuff. Because all we did all day was guys were on posts, or we went to the range and shot with the SF guys, learned how to drive, right? Did convoy security. And then I went with the major to dinners with the Filipino general and stuff like that. And you know, I was like, man, you know what? I think I need to join SF. Right? I think I'm going to join SF. I'm going to get out of the Marine Corps and join SF, you know? And the dude's like, you don't need to do that. You should stay in the Marines. Marines need guys like you. Right? And I'm like, whatever, dude. Right? That's bull crap. But we were down there, I think, for about a month and a half or so down there in Zamboanga City, and it was awesome because they caught some of the top Al-Qaeda dudes while we were there. They were doing all kinds of operations. I mean, we were just doing convoy security and hoping that people on the Muslim section of town shot at us to and from the airport. And when we're doing convoys and all that, they didn't. Again, disappointing, but you know, we were hoping. I mean, I had 4 Mitsubishi quad cab turbo diesel trucks. Had the Filipino dude weld a 240 mount on mine. So I had a guy in a balaclava, freaking, as we're racing through the streets, like biggest vehicle wins type thing. We had a fully armored Jeep Cherokee. It was for a young infantryman. Like at that time, I was like 21-year-old sergeant, right? Like that's as fun as it gets as an infantryman right there. But that deployment also told me I need to get out of the Marine Corps. So after that, I got out and then went to college to play lacrosse, did the reserves for a while. And then I actually put in a X-ray package, the USF, but they wouldn't give me a bonus. So I told them to pound sand, which again, in hindsight, not a smart idea. Then went back, and that's when I decided to join back, go back on active duty and go to Recon. You know, that was 2006. So I graduated from Monroe Community College, and a week later, went and showed up down at Recon Battalion, and they were like, "Are you a 21?" I was like, "No, I'm an 0311, proud 0311, you know, proud 0311." The dude at the duty desk was like, "Well, you shouldn't have orders to a company. That's not right." I'm like, "Look, man, I'm just doing what I'm told. This is what I was given. I'm giving it to you. Who do I check in with?" And the dude's being a dick, right? And I'm like, "Look, dude, I'll come right over this freaking counter and I will whoop your ass. Tell me who I need to check in with. I'll go get it done. Quit being a dick, bro. He's a sergeant. I'm a sergeant. I don't freaking care, right?" So I go get checked in. Right? Get it. All right, you're going to go to RIP because there's no way you're going to the company because you're not 21. So that's not happening. OJT program days are pretty much over anyway. So you're going to go and earn it the hard way anyway. Right? Which I knew was going to happen. Well, unbeknownst to me, next morning for a PT formation, the dude from the duty desk comes walking out. And he was one of the RIP instructors. So me and my big mouth definitely earned me a few extra 8 counts. So I was in RIP. Wake up, prove you're a man every day, because there was a lot of younger guys there, you know, privates or PFCs and lance corporals and stuff. And I mean, there was a core of us, of guys who are already NCOs, though most of them, all of them, I'm still good friends with to this day. So RIP just, you know, it was like play the game. You know what I mean? Wake up, PT, get thrashed, do some land nav, learn some, like, you know, knowledge classes, and then get thrashed some more. And then, you know, as wash, rinse, repeat. Like Cinco de Mayo of 2006, we did 5,008 counts in the pond. while one of the instructors sat on a throne of MRE cases. Yeah. And then they're like, hey, you got great PT scores, go to ARS. And I'm like, hey, man, like, I've never done a screener. Right? And they're like, yeah, you're good, man. You're like, you'll get it. You're good, right? So the one key thing of the screener, right, is the 25-meter underwater crossover, right? Camis, no boots, right? After you've already swam 500 meters, you gotta swim 25 meters underwater without coming up, right? Doesn't sound like it's pretty far, but if you've never done it before, it's really far, right? So I went down, came up like 15 meters later, and I was like, oh shit. And my buddy Mario Real, a guy who's a good friend of mine now, he's sitting there in his face and he's like, oh shit is right. Go try it again. So I did it 2 more times. I did not make it, right? So I'm standing on the pool deck. I got out of the Marine Corps, came back in to be a Recon Marine, because I always wanted to be my goal in life was to be a Force Recon team leader, just like the guys that I went out with on that first deployment, right? They made a big impression on me, right? And here I am on the pool deck, and I failed, right? And I felt pretty freaking low, because I don't accept failure, you know? And I'm standing there going, man, I'm fucked. I'm going back to the grunts. This is my shot to have a better career, right? Make my way, you know? And I'm standing here, and the platoon sergeant Rip came up to me and he said, how are you a sergeant and why did you fail this screener? And I was like, gunning, because he was a gunny at the time. I'm good friends with him now. I was like, gunny, I've never done a screener. I told your staff before I came up here that I've never done a screener. And he was like, you're gonna be a Recon Marine. You're gonna go back to RIP. And I owe him for that. I owe him for his faith in me. And so I went back down the RIP, went to BRC out here in California later on in like September, passed BRC. I mean, that time when I'm out on the pool deck, I'm like, hey, look, this is the last crossover I ever have to do. It's a lie. I had to do way more after that. But so I freaking went to BRC and then passed and became a Recon Marine in 2006. So after BRC, I was assigned the Charlie Company, 2nd Platoon. From there, I mean, we got back in November of 2006 from BRC, and then things were kind of like, you know, it was like holiday time, so really nobody's around. They're like reforming the platoons because the battalion had just gotten back from deployment not long before that. So in one of those like restructuring time frames. And my BRC class, there's a BRC and ARS class that was like basically my whole RIP class. And all of us NCOs that were in those RIP and ARS classes, we all became team leaders at the battalion right out of the go, because we all had experience as squad leaders and all that stuff, and we all had very strong personalities. I had a bunch of guys, a couple guys actually, that were in my team in RIP, in my team at BRC, and then they were in my team when we got back to the battalion. They're like, dude, we just can't get rid of this dude. Like, we can't. Did, you know, like Sierra School Airborne and stuff like that, and then went into our platoon train-ups. The last training evolution that we did before we went to Iraq was out of 29 Palms. I was in a Humvee rollover and broke my femur, my back, fractured my forehead, broke my nose in like 5 spots. My whole team got ejected out of the Humvee. My point man held himself down in the turret somehow. His back's still boogered up to this day. He just retired. He was a first sergeant. And my ATL broke a rib and punctured a lung, and then the rest, everyone walked away from it except for me, essentially. And I got medevaced out of there. And so like laying on the ground. Us being Marines, we are who we are, right? So my slack man, dude Mikey Hassan, he's half Pakistani, half Irish. So in my brain, right, Pakistanis are great cab drivers in New York. He's from New York. 1 + 1 = 2, right? He's obviously our team driver, you know? Well, obviously the Irish side like wins out on driving, right? Because he's not a good driver, you know what I mean? So he was our team driver, you know, because he was our cab driver, you know what I mean? Because he's Pakistani. Hello? The convoy had gone like half right, and we had kind of gone half left off on our own. I'm like, hey, turn right, turn right. And he turned the wheel, we hit some soft sand, and those up-armored Humvees are really top-heavy, and freaking rolled it right over. And I remember the first roll, but I don't remember anything after that. Trunk had ripped off and landed on my leg, like the door was like right by my head. When I woke up, right, like my corpsman's like, my Sark's like, hey, what's wrong? And I was like, leg broke, back, ouch. He's like, how do you know your leg's broke? I'm like, it's broken, Well, I'm like, don't cut my boots off. I just bought brand new boots, right? $120 pair of Garmont boots. Like, don't cut my boots off or I'll kill you, Trevor. And he's like, all right, I won't touch your boots, Cuts my pants and cuts up my compression shorts, and my leg just blew up to like 3 times the size. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's broke. So then a couple minutes later, the company, Sark's out there, IDC's out there, and our first sergeant's out there, and I got a tattoo on my lower back, a tramp stamp, actually. It says pain is candy, right? And everybody knows I have it. So my first sergeant's like, oh, is pain candy now? And I'm like, no, it's not, And they put my leg in traction, like, man, Jason Beard, I'm telling you right now, dude, like, I still owe you for that. He's like, I'm gonna put your leg in traction. And dude, Sarks they get happy about this stuff, right? Like, they love trauma, and triage and people and all that. And my one buddy, he was like, dude, that was like worse than most IEDs I've seen. Like, he was like, it almost made me like nauseous looking at it, 'cause there's bodies just sprayed out, laid out all over the desert. And the frickin' truck's all boogered up, Put me in traction, called in a civilian medevac, and like gave me enough morphine to frickin' put down a horse, and didn't even touch my pain, brought me to Palm Springs Medical. And I had to go home. I ended up going home to upstate New York and recovering. They went to Iraq, and I was sitting home eating pills and drinking beer. Reasons why I'm a big hunter now, because when I was growing up, I didn't really hunt that much, and my parents actually didn't allow any guns in the house. I didn't get my first gun until I was 16, right, which is crazy for a farm kid. I just had BB guns and bows and arrows, and I got a shotgun when I was 16, and if I did any hunting, it was with my uncle, and it was not hunting, just deer drives. So I was sitting home eating pills and drinking booze and feeling really sorry for myself. I decided I need to do something to occupy my time, so I ordered a freaking bow off eBay and started hobbling around in the woods with a back brace and a cane. Hunting saved me from a downward spiral of which there was going to be no return, and why I've started the projects that I've started now in retirement, like with the reason and stuff like that. I was probably home from like August till after Christmas at least. And then I was like, no, I gotta go back to work, right? Like, they wanted to medically retire me at that time, and I should have been, actually. And back then, it's not like it is now. No real like process. I went back down and worked in the dive locker when I went back down to North Carolina, get myself healthy. I started CrossFitting like way too early, actually, probably 4 months after my injury. Like, my body's never been the same after it. I mean, honestly, I used to be able to run a 17:33 mile, and the best I could do after that injury might have been a 19:30, maybe 20 minutes. But it just, my body's never been the same. Decided I didn't want to take that medical retirement route, so I had an orthopedic surgeon in New York that was actually my doctor, but my med board doctor was a guy at the Naval Hospital who never met me, so I caught him coming out of surgery one day and had him just scribble me back to full duty. So bam, full duty, ready to go. And then I went to Mountain Leader School. 7-8 months after the injury, I went to Mountain Leader School. And that hurt real bad. That hurt real bad, man. An amazing school because it helped me in my follow-on deployment, which was in Afghanistan with Alpha Company. So my buddy, Kevin, that was in that Force platoon on my first deployment, he was a platoon sergeant at the battalion. When I actually checked in the RIP, I had seen him, and he was like, you finally made it, huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. We'll see if I make it, which I did. So I saw him, and he was going to be a platoon sergeant in Alpha Company. I'm like, hey, man, I want to be in your platoon. And he's like, you got it. So bam. So I got in his platoon, Alpha Company, 3rd Platoon, and we did our workup and deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. This is with a Recon Battalion. Oh, Recon Battalion. Yeah, with Recon Battalion. 2009 deployment was, like, I think every Marine, did combat deployments. I mean, just in general, right? There was one deployment that like is a very defining, you know, moment of your career. And for me, like that 2009 deployment in Afghanistan was mine. Not that I hang my hat on it, but for me, it defined me as a reconnaissance Marine, as a leader and as an operator. We worked up in Nauzad, up in northern Helmand province, which is like the most kinetic place in the country, one of the most kinetic places in the country at the time. We flew to Afghanistan. We're at Camp Leatherneck, and then they're like, hey, 3rd Platoon, you're going to go work for 2-3 up in Nauzad. The rest of the company's going to stay here as the task force raider, basically like the MEB's raid force, essentially. When we went in to get our intel brief on this area that we're going to, right, the freaking IED, the fob, the map's up, right, fob's on, and IED tracker's up. And all I saw around that fob were hundreds of red little explosion marks. Right, and I'm looking at that thing, and I'm going, oh shit, just got real. Like, for real, for real. You know, I had a friend that was in a Force platoon prior, who got his legs blown off up there, like literally right before we left on deployment. He got his legs blown off, and we ended up being near that exact same spot a couple times on that deployment. Reconnaissance Marines, wettest dream, like the number one thing that you can be asked to do is to go work for an infantry battalion. Textbook definition of reconnaissance and how we operate, right? Like, you know, you want to go do recce, you want to go do reconnaissance and surveillance for a unit, right? That is our bread and butter, and that's what we got to go do. So we fly up there to Nauzad, right? We're in the, they're like, hey, rucks. We brought our rucks. We had a couple Pelican cases. We didn't have any vehicles or anything like that. We were just flying up there. Freaking crew chief's like, it's a hot LZ. Right, and we're like, oh shit, like, oh, it's getting real, right? Like, dude, hottest place in Afghanistan, hot LZ, like, this is it, man. Like, it's whooping it on. We're like, damn, we got all these Pelican cases, we got these heavy ass rucks and shit. Like, what the F, man? You know, so we're like, all right, you know, the SOP, right? Get out, 180, that whole deal, you know. Bird lands, we get out all freaking hut, all fast, 180. Holding security, high knee, right? Bird takes off. Also, we see dudes smoking cigarettes. Dudes are laughing, right? We're like, what the hell's going on here, man? Like, you know, so freaking the grunts, they're like, man, we haven't taken fire on this LZ in a couple months. And we're like, dude, man, like, who was it, man? The freaking crew chief did that to us? Like, or did he actually think it was a hot LZ? Like, what the hell's going on here, man? Right, man, I'm up here, dude. You know? These dudes are smoking cigarettes, man, kicking back, joking, you know, right? And we're freaking on high alert, man, you know? So we're like, son of a bitch, dude. Like, man, somebody got us in the honey pot. They bring us in the fob, and they're like, throw them in the palace. We go in this spot that we end up making our, like, compound. And the next morning, we go out to go talk to the first sergeant. Now, when we showed up there, right, we had our frog suits, but we also brought our camis, like our nice camis. So everyone camis, issued boots. We'd shaved everyone's heads before we went up there, that we don't have no haircut issues, and we didn't know we were gonna get a haircut again anyways. We're like, hey, everyone just shaved their heads, like nobody to impress, you know what I mean? I mean, we kind of did need to impress the infantry, you know, guys. The company commander, right, show up looking squared away type deal. So we go report into the first sergeant, you know, and he's like, who the hell are you guys? We're like, you know, Kevin's like, we're the Recon platoon. He's like, aren't you guys supposed to have, like, you know, long hair and stuff like that? And we're like, not this platoon. And he was like, right on. The company commander there, he had been a platoon commander out at 3rd Recon Battalion, so that definitely helped too, but we made a good impression. You know, so dude's giving us the tour of the fob, right? And he's like, we'll eat some breakfast while we're here. Right, we'll eat some breakfast, and we're eating breakfast. He's like, you don't got to worry about, he's like, don't worry about wearing body armor on the fob. We haven't taken any mortars or fire here in probably like 2 weeks. 2 minutes later, wham, mortar comes in, almost hits the mortar pit. Boom, we're like, oh shit, right? We're like, oh. He's like, all right, let's get our body armor. Run back to the compound, put our freaking stuff on, battle rattle on, you know? We're like, all right, man, we're in it to win it now, you know? At the time, it was a freaking great place. Like, you could eat breakfast, grab a sniper rifle, put a helmet on, go up to the top of the compound, and see if you could shoot some dudes in the greens. We're every day, like, put the post right outside our hooch is rocking and rolling. Every day almost, like most days, especially at the beginning of the deployment. And like, so Nauzad was like, the only people that were there were dirtbags. Like, that was it. It was like a mountain ghost town on steroids. The only people that lived there were dirtbags. All the people had moved like south, right? So there was only, dirtbags there. And then on the eastern side of the frickin' wadi there. But anytime that shooting would start, right, frickin' the dirtbags come out of the village, go across into the greens or into the Nauzad, and we would whoop it on. For a recon platoon, working for infantry battalion and then an infantry company, it was a great freaking place because we meshed well with the squad leaders. There was a sniper team there we basically like took on as our fourth team. We just started kicking operations while we were there. I sent a couple of my guys up to this mountain called Mount Olympus. Like, go up there, get a lay of the land, because the grunts had an OP up there. Dude, they get up there. They're up there like 2 hours calling a fire mission. So two of my youngest guys I sent up there, go up there, calling a fire mission, blow some dudes up. So now I'm like, man, son of a bitch, right? These dudes are up there whooping it on. I'm down here in the file, man. This sucks. I'm like, man, I'm jealous, but they did good. Like, they called in, I mean, they did everything like the way that they had been trained, and they freaking did a fire mission by the book, did a great job. The grunts are super impressed. I'm super impressed. Like, this is all good for us, So me and my buddy Lance, we went out with the sniper team to get a look at the kind of like a, like a leader's recon of the district center, right? It's gonna be like semi-covert, but kind of overt, kind of a hide thing. We're gonna bring out a couple machine gunners with a Mark 19. Basically, right, we're gonna go up, set up. It's gonna be kind of covert till about like midday, and then be a little bit more overt. The grunts are gonna do a patrol, and so then we're gonna turn into Overwatch, like one of those situations. So we go out there. It's like we had dropped off like 200-meter infill, no big deal, right? Me and my buddy Lance just laid up on the roof with our Mark 11s, and I had brought an M79 too, right? Because I'm like, yo, man, this thing's like Vietnam era. Like, I want to shoot freaking this thing, Sun's coming up, right? And the freaking machine gunner, right? This dude lugged in a Mark 19, him and his A gunner, Mark 19, tripod, all the ammo, and on top of that, a case of Rippets, right? So sun's coming up, and I hear, and I look over, because I'm like, there's no, like, not, like, let's have some noise discipline here, fellas, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm laying on my face over here, dude. He's got a little he's got this little cami netting set up. He's just sitting underneath it, right? And he looks over at me, and he's like, points at the can, and he's like, hey, man, you want to rip it? I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, okay. Drinks this rip it. A little bit later, he's like, hey, are you guys going to lay there like that all day? And we got bino spotting scope, laid out, right? We're just we're proned out, We're like freaking first stop in Afghanistan, baby. Like, we're disciplined, right? So we're like, yeah, we're laying here like this all day. And he's like, man, you motherfuckers are crazy, man. I wouldn't do that. I'm hanging out right here. And he's under his cami netting, which, he did have a nice little spot over there because he was just kicked back chilling. And a couple minutes later, I hear, right? I look over at him. He's like, you want to rip it? I'm like, no, I'm good on the rip it, dude. Man, the guy drinks rip it. Hour later, guess what he does again? Cracks another rip it, right? He looks over at me. I'm like, dude, how many rippets do you have? He goes, picks up a whole case. Picks up a whole case of rippets, dude. I'm like, dude, you hauled in a Mark 19, a freaking tripod, and an ammo can of ammo, and a case of rippets? He's like, yeah, man, why not? I'm like, all right, throw me a rip it, dude. Throw me a rip it, right? So throws me a rip it, trick to rip it. And he's like, you guys are crazy. He's laying there like, that's dumb. That's dumb. So later on in the afternoon, we get into a firefight. I'm like, okay, good. This is all paying off now. So we got some dirt bags out there, and we're freaking shooting at them. So I pull out the M79. I'm like, I'm getting my combat action in Afghanistan with this M79 right now. So, and it's like max horde too. So I'm like, boop, and shoot it. Probably landed nowhere near where the dudes were shooting at us from, right? Don't care, because I still got to shoot that thing that day, right? That's like shot a couple with the Mark 11, shot some with that. Like I'm a happy camper right now. My buddy Lance shot a couple with it, but we had a great day on that op. So that was getting to Afghanistan, and after that we had some, like some rough missions. Like first op I ran there, I call it the learning mission, because inevitably our fighting force is too heavy, and we were too heavy, and we were up in the mountains. We almost didn't make it to our first hide site on the first op that we ran because we were so freaking heavy. I got back from that mission, and we're like, what can we get rid of? Like side plates, gotta go, right? For recce missions, right? We're doing RNS, we're up in the mountains where we're not we're covert, and we're carrying, I think, probably 15 quarts of water, I want to say. Yeah, probably 15 quarts of water, and that was only lasting us 48 hours, and I would probably piss one time, and it would look like wood glue. So that's a lot of water to carry. Rucks were like well over 100 pounds, easy day. Like we got to lighten this load, right? So we're freaking trying to lighten the load, and, got down to as good as we could get it. Probably one of our toughest missions was this one where we infiltrated this big town called Nauzad. And we actually ended up finding one of the Taliban's top leadership, like the shadow governor, when we were there. What we started doing, right? Like, all right, because we're carrying a 50 cal with us, Sasser. We're like, we got to get rid of this thing. On this mission, we took it. But we also were like, hey, let's take a Javelin with us, right? We went to the freaking grunts, to 2-3, to the freaking cat guys. We're like, hey, let us borrow one of your Javelin guys so we can freaking, like, dude, the thing's awesome. We can track moving targets. We put it in top attack mode, and the clue has a thermal on it. So now we don't got to carry a PAS 22 or 25, which are crazy heavy, right? We can get rid of that. We can use this. Everything's all good in the hood. You know what I mean? We had taken these guys out on a couple missions, and they'd shot a bunch of missiles. This one dude, right, freaking little dirt bags, freaking come out, hiding behind a wall, boop, shoots the Javelin. 1 minute they're there, boom, 1 minute they're gone, and next thing you see is red splattered all over the wall. So we're like, yep, winter chicken dinner. Javelin's going with us wherever we go. Well, to go to Nauzad, right? This was way up away from the FOB, right? Well, the section leader, not gonna mention names, right? He's like, hey, look, my boots have been shooting guys with Javelins. I'm going on this mission. So I'm like, okay, come on out, man. You got it. You just have to be able to, it's like a 10-click infill, right? It's not gonna be easy. He's like, yeah, I got it. I can do it. Post up the warning order. My point man, who is my NARC, my non-amphibious reconnaissance corpsman. He'd been to BRC, but he hadn't gone through the rest of the pipeline yet, so I just called him my non-amphibious reconnaissance corpsman. And he's a master chief now, and he's a freaking killer dude. So he's like, hey man, you need to come check this out. So I post a warning order, right? On the warning order, right? It itemizes what you carry, right? And when we were on it in Afghanistan, right, I had it down to the point where we had a hydration plan the day of missions. Right? This is what you drank. When you drank it, everyone showed up, drank it, did whatever, right? Freaking oral rehydration salts. Like, that's the gnat's ass nitty gritty that we were getting into to be able to go out and fight effectively if we needed to, because of how hot and just how difficult the terrain was and how much water we would drink and how we had to conserve it and stuff. So dude dumps his ruck. Dude's got Pringles cans, Snickers bars, Red Bulls. I was like, hey dude, you look at the fucking warning order. So see what that says? That's what you're gonna carry. That's it. You're not carrying all this pogey bait. You're not carrying any of this crap. 1 meal per day, minimum. If you have another main meal with you, that's on you. But none of this other crap's going, right? This is gonna be a difficult op. You know what I mean? You're like, this is gonna be a hard op. You know what I mean? We're infiltrating the biggest, nastiest freaking bed of dirt bags that we know about, right? There's one of our main areas of interest in the whole freaking AO. We get him squared away. We insert, we get 100 yards from the trucks, we're conducting SEALs, stop, look, listen, smell, right? And I hear water running. One of those dudes' camelback bladders broke. I go up to him, I get in his ear, and I said, listen, You have one more water source break. That means that we're going to be combat ineffective, and we're going to have to freaking abort this mission because you're not going to have enough water to make it for the next 2 days, right? And that's unacceptable. So unfuck your shit right now, because if that happens, you're going to have a rough day, because I'm going to beat the shit out of you. I'm going to hurt you. All right, so we get him squared away. Get up. We get into a hide. I'm on one ridge. My buddy, we had my other buddy's team was on another ridge. We had interlocking fields of fire, right, at each other's back and stuff, at nice little L shape, as it were. And so we got this hide. And how we did the hides in this dark rock, we'd take the new camionetting black side out and we put it over some rocks, and it blended in like perfectly. So we're up on the side of this mountain. Sun's coming up, and this dude's foot is hanging out of our hide site. And I said, hey, if you don't pull that foot in there, I'm gonna cut it off. Right? And he's like, dude, is this what you guys do? I said, yeah, this is what we do. He's like, we're gonna sit here like this all day? I was like, yeah, all day, and conduct reconnaissance and surveillance. We did the reconnaissance part, now we're doing the surveillance part. And he's like, you guys are crazy. I'm never coming with you ever again. I said, well, that's too bad, because we got 2 days to sit here, right? Dirtbags come out of the freaking village, and they set up a vehicle checkpoint, just the exact way that, the way that we do it, right? People are opening hoods, doors, trunks, all that stuff, searching vehicles, and I'm like, dude, I mean, there's like 6 to 8 dirtbags down there searching vehicles. I'm freaking calling it in, right? We had this like 80 power Carl Zeiss spotting scope, right? So we're looking, through it, and I'm like, we're trying to request permission to freaking, get air to drop on these guys, right? Because they're clearly dirtbags doing dirtbag things, right? And they're like, denied. Send pictures for proof. So I'm like, oh, good. I'll play your game, right? Right around that time, we see this dude come walking out of this compound with 2 security, right? Straight up bodyguards, right? I'm like, oh man, that's an important dude, right? So get the scope pointed at him, and then one of us, what we do, we take this little G10 camera we had and we put it against the spotting scope. So almost a camera like we're filming on right now, put it against the spotting scope so we get a picture, and then we take the picture. So we got facial recognition of this dude, and higher, right? They're being freaking, they see where we're sitting at. We're like 500 meters away, sending pictures, right? Request air, denied, right? Can we shoot him with the Javelin and Sasser, or no, HIMARS, right? HIMARS, which, denied, right? 120s from the FOB couldn't hit there. So we're like, all right, can we use Javelin and our sniper rifles? No. So our SOP at the time was that we would observe for 24 hours, and then if we had targets of opportunity on our second 24 hours, we would engage them then. So they're like, if they do the same thing tomorrow, you're cleared hot, you'll be good, right? So we're like, okay, I mean, let's stick with the SOP, but let's not waste opportunities either. About halfway through the day, our vehicles were staged in this pass. Well, one of the serpentines broke on the vehicle, right? And they're like, all right, that's not a big deal, right? We'll just not run the vehicle, right? We'll figure it out. Keep rolling. Well, they started getting shot at by a multiple launch rocket system, right? And like literally the freaking first thing that we hear is like, wee, boom, right? And on the radio, oh fuck. And then we're like, oh shit, man, like, what the fuck's going on, And so they're getting shot at by this multiple launch rocket system. So like, hey, you guys need to fucking exfil tonight. Right? Like, we're pushing down deeper in this pass to get away from these dirt bags because we can't see where they're shooting at us from, but we're not going to leave you out there because there's a lot of dirt bags in this village, right? So you guys need to exfil tonight. So that night, we exfilled. Get in the vehicle, right? We're going back, bam, my vehicle hits an IED. So knocked me out briefly, fucked the vehicle up. Everybody was fine though. But then now the problem, and so that means they backlight an IED within like 24 hours, or less than that. So now the problem is that the wrecker, which is in the FOB, 10 clicks away or 12 clicks or however many clicks away it was, right? The wrecker's down. And you gotta go through Nauzad, like that place was just full of IEDs, right? Like everywhere in Nauzad. Like we had a dog run past us one night and the freaking thing stepped on an IED and ghosted itself. It was like that. Sun's getting ready to come up. They're like, the wrecker's down, not gonna be up for 24 hours. We're like, you better make it quicker than that because the sun's gonna come up and we're about to get fucked up. Because we're right in the middle of these two other villages. There was like basically 3 villages that kind of went up in this freaking wadi system, or in this Karev, like dry riverbed that were surrounding us essentially. And we knew there was dirtbags there. So the sun starts coming up and we start getting shot at by that multiple launch rocket system and machine gun fire. So I take the Jav gunner and I'm like, we're going to the top of that mountain right there. Got the 50 cal, he's got the Jav, a couple, I think my ATL and the other guys coming with us. So we go running up there, right? 'Cause we're waiting for the wrecker to come get us. Like we can't do shit till the wrecker gets there, but we're in a gunfight. So we're running up to the top of this freaking little mountain, right? And all the Jav gunners going, never again, never again. I'm like, shut the fuck up. He's like, never again. You're crazy. You're crazy. Like, that's all he was telling us the whole way up there. We didn't get to shoot anybody with the Javelin up there because it was out of range. So we ran back down. Wrecker ends up coming out, and it was a gunfight all the way back to the fob, which was actually a pretty fun day because I mean, it was a messed up day, but it was a fun day, you know. Because I had one of the machine gunners running the gun in our vehicle. He was running Mark 19. Not the same guy that was in the hide with the Rippets, different guy. But this dude was like, hey, you know, can I free gun it? And freaking, we're like, yeah, man, free gun. This dude comes running out with an RPG from this freaking compound. He's like, doom, 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 doom. And you could see the dude's body went one way and the dude's leg went the other way. Right? And I'm like, keep shooting, like passing him up ammo, like, yeah, it was freaking. My slack man's in the back of the 7-ton with his pistol out sideways shooting. Dude, I'm like, what were you doing, man? He's like, I always wanted to do that, you know, like it was like one of those days, you know. You know, you got to find the silver lining and fun in a day where it's a complete clusterfuck, you know, and it's just a bad day because you're getting shot at from everywhere, you know what I mean? So I got a call like 2 days later. Some grunt comes running out and he's like, is Sergeant Kuperus here? And I'm like, right here. He's like, you got to call him the Sipper. And I'm like, oh man, not good. Like, not good when you get a call on that phone. You know what I mean? Like, you know, team leader getting a call on the Sipper, like not cool, you know? So I go running over there. I'm like, hello. And I hear this little sweet female voice on the other end. Hi, how are you? And it's my sister-in-law. So my sister-in-law was working for an agency at the time that's closed down now, but she was working up in Kabul. And she was like, hey, I just want to let you know you guys are doing a really great job. I've been following you. Some of your briefs have been pushed up to some very high places, you know, and blah, blah, which is awesome because a couple times we're out there, like freaking, you know, helicopters came in, hit some targets that we'd done recce on, and we didn't know who it was. Soft guys come in, bam, hit targets, like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So, I mean, it could have been us, could have been someone else, but I like to think that it was us, you know what I mean? But she said, like, hey, so we talked later on, and we did find the Taliban shadow governor of the district. That's who was outside that compound that day. So it was freaking super cool. The op we ran before that, actually, we were in a hide, and we got a call like very early in the morning, and it was like, hey, Raider 3, you guys have 2 fallen angels. So, and all they would say on the radio is like kill numbers, you know? So it was like H, whatever it was, and then H, whatever it was, right? And like, all right, you have 2 fallen angels, blah, blah. Obviously it wasn't us because we were up working for them. The rest of our company is down working for the general down at Leatherneck, out of Leatherneck. And come to find out that our ops chief and our, one of our, I think our armor, I think it was one of our armors or ammo tech, got killed in an IED. And John Hayes was our ops chief, and he was a Recon legend. And this guy was team leader of the year 2 times, was a awesome Recon Marine, awesome Marine, great guy, a good leader. You know, it kind of shakes you a little bit, you know, because it's usually not, it's not common that you hear of like your, you know, the ops chief. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but usually it's not usually like other guys. One of the guys gets killed, not someone that you look up to, you know? So that was like, that sucked. there was a lot of unknowns. Like we just didn't know what happened from where we were. We're in the middle of a freaking hide, middle of the night, and we hear that, you know, that's all the information you're given. You're like, damn, what the hell? Worst day of my life. And it's not really what most people think it is, but it kind of is. We get this crazy idea, right? Still in Afghanistan, right? Same deployment. So, and we worked amazing. We worked great with the guys from 2-3. These guys were like our brothers, like squad leaders. We had meetings regularly with the squad leaders, sniper team leaders, right? And we were like, hey, how do we draw what the Taliban would do? They would come out anytime that we'd hit an IED or something in Nauzad, in the district center. They would just come out of this village, come across the wadi into the greens, and then we'd gunfight like clockwork. So like, all right, this is what they do. So let's exploit this. All right, we're gonna go out, freaking set up an ambush position in the greens, right? And then the grunts are gonna go out in the middle of the day, set off a fake IED, right? Like they fucking got hit, like they hit an IED. And then they're gonna come reinforce down the paths they usually reinforce. We're gonna ambush them. We're gonna kill everybody. It's gonna be awesome, right? It's like wet dream stuff, right? Great plan. Now, we hadn't slept in a couple of days prior to this. We just came off and up, and they're like, hey, let's do this. We're like, yeah, let's do it. So we go out. What we would do in Nauzad, right, we'd have a sweeper, and then who was a combat engineer, or one of our guys would run the minesweeper, but we'd use this guy, Tom Martin. And this dude's freaking not all there. So what we would do, we took IR chem light juice, and we put it in the tall water bottles, and we pop a hole in the top. So whoever was running point, if Tom marked an IED, we'd spray it on the IR chem light juice on the ground so it glowed so you could see with your nods. And then you'd stay in the steps of the footprints of the guy in front of you, right? And this is like for inside the district center because it was so heavily IED'd, right? And it was like, we had a squeeze system, like of how you move past it, all this stuff. So we filled up 2 water bottles. We start patrolling through the district center, and there's this freaking field, bunch of fields that we kind of had to go through to get where we were going. We start going in this field. And I see Tom tap the ground, and I see him stomp the ground. And when I saw him do that, I pulled my point man back. I'm like, back up, dude, back up. And then he jumped on the ground, this dude, Tom, right? Jumps on the ground. I'm like, what in the fuck are you doing? Right? He goes, better your legs than mine, right? And I was like, yeah. But no, but yeah, right? Like, good point. Yeah, fair enough. But no, like, don't, bro, come on, man. He's like, if it's a solid hit, I won't do that. I'm like, okay. Well, within 200 meters of this field, we used all our chem light juice. You could see freaking mortars with wires coming out, and artillery shells with wires coming out on top of the ground, in the ground, stuff everywhere, right? We had spent like 2 hours trying to go through this thing, and we ran out of chem light juice. That's how many IEDs and mines and stuff were in this field, right? Post-mission, we find out, because EOD goes out there, finds out that there's a Russian minefield there that nobody had freaking marked, right? The Brits who had been there probably knew about it because they had that fob before we took it over, right? And all that. But there was a Russian minefield there that we didn't know about. And we had made it like halfway through it before I was like, back up. So we freaking back out, go around the field the long way, get set up in this ditch, got an L-shaped ambush kicking, right? Claymores are out, everything, right? It was like perfect. So they gave us this stuff called Provigil, right? It was like government issued speed, like for soft guys. You're supposed to take it a few times to test, see how it reacts with you before you actually take it, but none of us really did that method. So sun's coming up, getting ready to come up, and it's like, you know, about to be Taliban time, right? And I'm freaking pop one of them jokers, and within 10 minutes, I had to shit my brains out. Like, no jokes. I mean, it's freaking hot, man, middle of summertime, right? Freaking like, sun's starting to come up. I'm like, dude, I gotta get this done like right now. And we're in this freaking ditch, plates on, ghillied, like Cobra hoods, ghillied up, right? This is like freaking infantry, L-shaped ambush, like, you know, like guys from Nam are like, you've never lived until you like been in an ambush position, you pissed yourself and shit yourself. Well, guess what? Old Coop found out what the deal was on that day because sun's coming up. I'm like, oh crap, right? So I like roll to the side a little bit, pull my pants down, just blow mud all over the ditch, right? Very shallow ditch too. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like running down my cheeks. It won't stop. I'm like, this is terrible, right? Like reaching my ruck, right? Pull my wipes out, wipe my freaking keister, right? Wipe it as good as I can, kick a little dirt over it. And now I'm just pissy. I'm just angry, right? Tom, he's holding rear security right by me. I'm freaking mad, just ticked, right? I look to my left, right? Sun's all the way up now. And I look to my left, and my ATL, he's sitting cross-legged behind his tripod with his sniper rifle, all freaking nice little paws, gillied up. And my buddy Kevin's in the bush with him, because we brought him out as a JTAC. They're sitting in a bee's nest. So I look over there, and there's like this, like real slow, like just freaking moving bees. There are like bees swarming around them, and we can't move, right? Like can't move because otherwise we're gonna get compromised. We're in an ambush position, like we're in it to win it at this point. It's like freaking 120 degrees. I mean, like ground temperatures, crazy hot. Everyone's pissed off. I'm pissed off. Haven't slept. Like crap myself, right? The freaking Tom, the engineer, he's like, "Hey, Coop, are you mad at me?" I'm like, "No, why?" He's like, "You're not talking." I'm like, "Because I'm pissed off and we're in an ambush position. There's no talking, right? Like I'm mad. I don't want to talk anyways. You know what I mean?" Our SARC came out with us. We had to give him an EpiPen because he had an allergic reaction to something, right? So it's just a freaking miserable day. Grunts go out, set off their fake IED, right? So now here we go. This is the pinnacle of everybody's freaking deployment. It's going to be right here because we're about to ambush these dudes. Freaking IED goes off. We had one of our guys staged with the SIGINT guys, and he comes over the radio, and he's like, the Taliban say, Ali Akbar, you are all going to die. Ali Akbar. And he's repeating what they're saying verbatim, just straight on the radio to us. You are all going to die. And we're like, oh shit. Oh, it's about to get real, man. It's about to get real. It's about to get real, right? And he's just repeating it to us, which does not help, right? Like, not cool, bro. That's not how you do that. You know what I mean? We had to have a talk with him after that because we were like, man, I'm on high alert here, buddy. Only person that came down that trail was a woman. That's it. No dirtbags. Set off this IED, all this chatter. No, not one dirtbag come down the trails that they take every single day. So we just sat there in the blazing hot sun, getting roasted all day. Shit myself, bees' nests, dudes getting EpiPen, and we didn't even get to kill anybody. Do you know what? That's why it's a terrible day. You know what I'm saying? It's a terrible day, man. Right? Like, there we are. Like, you're just expecting the best of all things. This is what you wanted to do since you're a little crunchy. You know what I mean? Just one ambush, you know? And nothing. We didn't get to kill anybody. We had to patrol our asses back to the fob. I mean, the engineer, he's like, dude, I'm like, man, don't jump on IEDs like that, bro. You know, like, what are you doing, man? So right around that time, I was working out with the dude from the sniper team. His name was Lemke. I was working out with him in the gym. So we took these guys like under our wing, like they're like our fourth team, like best sniper team I've ever worked with, ever, my whole time. And they went out on a patrol later that night. They blew an opening in a wall, and then they walked through it. The engineer went first, this other dude named Richie, and then Lemke stepped on an IED on the inside of the wall and got his legs blown off. And he ended up going to Germany, and he got an infection. They had to keep amputating his legs up, and then infection ended up going into his stomach, and he ended up dying from that. Like they put him in a coma and brought his family out there, and you know, freaking brought him out of the coma, and you know, then he ended up dying, and that just really, you know, like, you know, you're working out with a dude, jack and steel, business as usual. You know, and then freaking later that night, then you don't ever see the dude again. You know, you're like, hey man, good luck tonight. Let me know if you need anything. Don't ever see the dude again, you know? And just freaking, you know, sucks. I mean, you know, you see your mortality, you know? I mean, the Nauzad was a pretty frightening place, you know, because you just didn't know. There was just IEDs everywhere. Like, I would rather duke it out with somebody in the street and in a shootout than have to worry about getting my legs blown off, you know? You know, where do you go to not get blown up? Go where the enemy's not going to go. So we went to the mountains. So anytime we had an area of interest, if we get high ground, we get high ground. We take the long way to go there, right through the mountains. And then we'd frickin', you know, set up surveillance. My buddy Lance took his team out. They were going to go check out these dudes in this pass. Sun's coming up, they start getting shot at. The grunts were on QRF, but a couple of us would go with them, right? Because they're our brothers, right? We're rolling type thing, you know? The other engineer, his name was iPod, because he was an Asian dude. He was wicked smart, man. He was way techie, you know? He's a techie Asian dude, so we called him iPod, right? And because that's how Marines are, you know? So we go out to go do QRF, to go reinforce these dudes. They're getting shot at by these yo-yos down in the dang pass. I get out, iPod's taking a sweet time. I'm like, iPod, let's go. Faster, faster. And finally, I just mushed iPod out of the way, like pushed him out of the way. Up this mountain we go. And me and my buddy Kevin and Leo, we took the we just basically ran the grunts up to the top of this freaking mountain, right, to reinforce our buddies. The other dirtbags, I think they peeled out of there before we got up there, because Lance had them launch mortars at them and stuff like that. But we broke those dudes off getting up there, and it was just funny because I'm like yelling at iPod, you know, like, hurry up, iPod, you know, like, our men are up on the ridge, like, let's go, you know. And he's like, I can't go any faster, you know, like, no, get out of the way, motherfucker, like, let's go. We ended up doing this raid on this village called Dahana. This village hadn't been taken since like Alexander the Great, some crap. South of Nauzad, right, the two mountains come together and there's a pass, it's Dahana's Pass, and then there's a village in there. And so our original plan was to go up the west side, and then go up over the top of the mountain. And then there was a machine gun position, Taliban machine gun position down in that pass. So we're gonna come from up top and drop down on them, because I brought all my mountaineering, the mountain leader kit. I had all my climbing gear and ropes and all that crap. So we're gonna go in there, go up on top of go up over the ridge, drop down on them, eliminate the machine gun position, and then do reconnaissance and surveillance until the grunts did a raid in the village, which we didn't end up doing. So the night we're supposed to leave and do that method, one of the FOBs went in the black on medical, so they scrapped the mission because of lack of air. I don't remember. They just scrapped it because one of the FOBs went in the black. We're like, all right, we're gonna insert the next night. So instead of doing all the climbing and all that, because that was like that can be very technical, and doing it in the middle of the night, and like it could get rough. So next option, we're gonna go over the pass, go over the ridge, cut east, and then assault the machine gun position from below, which is not ideal, but it'll be the middle of the night. Hopefully we get the drop on them, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So we get up over the freaking mountain, start cutting east, and it's supposed to be probably like an 5 to 8 click movement, and it turned out being way longer because you're not talking about, we're cross compartmentalizing and shit like that. And one of my dudes almost fell off a 50-foot cliff. Like I hear like, toot, toot, and I just caught the dude with my leg. And he was like, grabbed my leg, and he was like hanging off like a 50-foot freaking cliff. Right, so we keep moving. We end up at the kind of the base of the mountain-ish, moving east, don't have any comm, because we're in like this like black hole of comm. And so we end up having getting SATCOM to talk to another FOB, and they don't even know who we are. I had to like, hey, here's the phone number to FOB Cafaretta, call them and tell them that the recon team that is doing pre-raid RNS will be in position, right? Like that's how that ended up being, right? Like, because they're like, we don't recognize that call sign, like Raider 3, we don't recognize that call sign. And I'm like, okay, let me like explain this to you like Barney style. You need to call them and tell them we'll be in position, right? So they roger up to that. So we keep moving east, and it's getting like pretty close, probably maybe an hour of darkness left, maybe a little bit more, and we were broke off. And I was like, all right, boys, up there is the freaking machine gun position that we need to assault. So we start going up the hill, right? There ended up being nobody in that machine gun position. No more machine guns, thank goodness, because it was freaking was going to be rough, and we were broke the fuck off anyways. So we occupied the machine gun position and started doing observation. The grunts come in on they're coming in on 53s to do the raid on this village, and freaking all of a sudden we start seeing tracers coming out of the objective and at the birds, like hitting the birds, right, streaking out of there. So we had Kevin with us again as a JTAC, and he freaking's trying to contact air, right? They're supposed to be encrypted, they were not. So he's trying to get a hold of air, right? Because they had freaking rotors and fixed wing, and he's snaking the target with his ISLD, right? We had strobes on, lead trace, so like the green strobes. He's snaking the target with the ISLD. One of the Cobras, the Cobra section, peels off and freaking lasers us with its pod, because they had FAT-K. So the laser goes down me and my entire patrol and is bouncing off the last two dudes on the patrol, because my team and my buddy Lance's team, we had two teams, bounce on the last two dudes, right? And I was like, everybody get the fuck down. Kevin's freaking starts lassoing the fucking sky at that point, right? And he's trying to get on comms, yelling at him, and I'm like, get down, get down. Grabbed him, yanked him down, and they freaking first bird opened up on us with freaking rockets and launched rockets at us. And the last time I'd seen the laser was on the chest of the two dudes at the end of the patrol, right? And these damn rockets hit probably within 15, 20 yards of us. Like the entire world like exploded. And the second bird came in shooting guns at us. So as soon as he was doing rockets, like bah, 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 you know, shooting freaking machine guns at us, right? And like the whole world's like exploding around us, like freaking shit's whizzing freaking everywhere, right? Like all hell on earth just like broke loose. Like a couple things are going through my head. Like one, man, I remember when all those dudes said, oh yeah, in combat, like there's guys who'll piss and shit themselves, right? Like I was like, man, that's probably the closest I've ever been to pissing or shit myself, like for real. And number two, I see why the Taliban runs when they see those birds, because them fuckers are scary, man. You know what I mean? Them things are scary, right? So they peel off, right? And they're coming around, right? And I'm like, yo, I'm yelling at my freaking comm guy, one of the comm guys, like Tharp, he's on the freaking, because he's on VHF, because the grunts are coming down from Nauzad to Dahana. So he's trying to reach the platoon, because we had some of the platoon with them guys, right? Trying to reach them, right? Kevin's trying to talk to freaking, to rotors. Can't get a hold of the rotors, because they're in the freaking open when they weren't supposed to be. He ends up getting a hold of the fixed wing, because the birds were coming around for -2 to finish us off. And freaking got a hold of fixed wing, which called down to them, to the rotors, and called them dudes off. And we're like, dude, what the fuck, man? You know? Like no joke. If I'm at a VFW one day and some dude says that he was a Cobra pilot and his call sign was repent while he was in Afghanistan, he's getting punched in the mouth immediately. And out of the investigation of that, because our XO went to them down there and they tried saying that they thought that the strobes were AK fire. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I've never seen AKs, their lead trace, go like this. Boop, 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 right? And then they said that they thought the target was lasing us. Well, if you're standing here with an ISLD going like this on the side of a mountain, right? You're only doing this. Down at the target, it was going all down the side of the compound wall, right? There's no way you mistake that. And then come to find out they didn't smoke us proper because they bore sighted their frickin' laser wrong to their guns. And we watched them frickin' hit a frickin' house with a compound with civilians in a completely wrong frickin' compound later on in the day. So that whole frickin' section is just boogered up, straight up. Our XO went down there to go, went over to Bastion to frickin' and chewed him out. Like, what the fuck's your problem? I mean, but it wasn't until like a long time after that, because we're down there hooking and, duking it out and frickin', Dahana for however long, couple weeks. Right, that happens, right? So that's just that's how you start off with just a regular old day, That day, we're like, all right, well, if that's how we started the day, it can't get too much worse, The raid forces, they're hitting the target. The rest of the company's coming down from Nauzad, right? Some dude comes running out of the side of the this compound, right? He's in this wadi, and he's got he's got an AK. So we're like, all right, cool. We're gonna zap this dude. Well, my buddy shoots at him with a 50 cal and hits like right at his feet and just sprays him with whatever. And the dude's doing the hippity dippity, goes running back in the compound. We're like, oh damn, this that guy. Another dude comes out and he's hooking up an IED on the side of He's hooking up an IED on the side of the road, and we're like, oh yeah, we got this dude dead to rights. So like freaking Kevin's like, I got the countdown. We're like, all right, 750, right? Like he starts doing the countdown like right away. We're like, we're still dialing up freaking all our stuff. He's like 5, 4, 3, and we all shoot right T2, like perfect, like it's supposed to be. Bam, we shoot. All 3 shots hit right by this dude's foot. Right? He was like, oh, hell no. Jumps in the ditch. Right now, all we can see is in the ditch is his little freaking goofball hat, right? Going back and forth. So I was like, the hell with this, man. I'm like, all right, spot for me. I'm like, we're shooting at him. Our Mark 11's like, hitting right by his head. He's like doing this, right? Going back and forth. Cause it's just like, you can see the dude, like, it's like playing whack-a-mole, you know? You know what I mean? And then he like, exposed a little bit of himself, like bam, freaking hit him right in the stomach, dude. He's like, hits the ground, low crawls in. We're like, oh yeah, got him in the stomach. Yeah, he's done, right? He's done, right? Crawls into a freaking hole and rolls out. And then a little bit later, a mortar team went running into a freaking compound, and we had this dude freaking Green take the Javelin and freaking smoke them with the dang Javelin. On the other side of the pass, there's this freaking 14, I think it was like a 14.5 or 14.7 millimeter machine gun. Them little tricky bastards had it set up so it was like basically shooting over a finger into the village, and it would shoot like 2 or 3 shots and jam. So it'd be like bop, bop, jam, bop, 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 jam, right? You could hear it jam too. Well, it's on the other side. We couldn't see him. Nobody could see where it was, but the one dude, engineer, was in his Humvee, looked down and heard a crack and put his head back up, and there was a freaking hole right in his windshield where that thing shot right through his windshield. Oh yeah. And so we freaking called in there and blew the whole face of that mountain off trying to get that dang thing. And they stopped shooting from up there finally. And so we ended up coming down off the mountain, off where we were, down in they set up a little, a little company operating post down there in Dahana. And they're like, hey, can you guys go clear the caves up on the other side, right? And we're like, absolutely, no problem, right? So we get all these freaking cratering charges and all this freaking crap, and go up on the freaking opposite side of the pass, and we found 3 of those machine guns, like 3 14.5s or 7s, whatever they are. They come off of a Hind helicopter, I think. Stick a crating charge up in the top of this cave, blow it, freaking boulder like the size of a Volkswagen falls off the freaking mountain, goes rolling down, almost hits one of our vehicles. We're like, rock, 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 like MRAP's backing up down there and stuff, and we're freaking hoofing up this mountain. We come up to this other cave, and me and my buddy Lance, we're like, all right, big cave. You can tell there's been dirt bags in there. We're like, we're gonna throw grenades in there. That's what you should do. Clear it out before you go in there, right? It makes sense to me. So like, all right, we'll get our grenades ready. Throw it into the cave. Boom! Grenade goes off, and one of the grenades pops out right next to the opening of the cave, like 3 feet from us. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, Lance, did you thumb the clip on that grenade? He's like, you know I did. I'm like, did you? He's like, yes, I did, right? Like, we start talking crap to each other all the time about it, but both, everything was like, all procedures were done right, but one of the, must have been 2, one didn't go off. So we had to call up old Tom again and blow that up. And then, so we go to the top of this mountain, we find the machine gun that was shooting at us. They had it mounted on a tripod with a tractor seat and hand cranks, right? And a whole pile of brass around there. And there was one more cave left up on this damn mountain. I had left all the climbing gear in our ORP a couple 100 meters down the mountain because we were smoke checked. So me and my buddy Lance, I'm like, hey bro, let's just shoot some 203s in that thing. Like, it was like, we would have to climb up like 10 feet straight up, go in. You could tell they'd been in there. I go, let's just lob some 203s in there. Call it a day. And he's like, all right, cool. Get my 203. They were probably like 25 yards away. Length, height, probably 20 yards up, And I freaking lob a 203 in there because I'm outside of frag radius, all that other shit, right? But I'm not thinking really too good at that point, obviously. So I shoot that thing, bam, gets freaking smoked in the side, dude. It feels like I got kicked in the chest by a freaking mule, right? I'm like, oh, fuck, that fucking hurt, man. I said to my buddy Lance, I'm like, hey, man, maybe we should get down before you freaking shoot in there. He's like, oh, yeah, buddy, oh, yeah. boom, and it shoots in there. Anyway, I go, no, seriously, let's get down, like behind this rock right here. He's like, yeah, okay. So we shoot a couple more in there, right? And I'm like, damn, man, my freaking side hurts, bro. I'm like, hey, man, can you check me out? So I open up my body armor, right? And rips open my, you can see blood right there. Opens up my flight suit and there's blood just leaking out of my freaking chest. And he's like, oh, buddy, oh yeah, he's so happy, right? He's like, oh, give me your IFAC, give me your med kit, right? And he's like, I get to patch you up, I'm like, oh man, son of a bitch, this is embarrassing, man. I got hit by my own grenade, dude, you know? So I called down to Rick and to the platoon commander, man. I'm like, hey, we got casualties. He's like, who? I'm like, me. And he's like, what happened? I was like, I hit with some grenade frag. He's like, are you taking fire? You know, I'm like, no, everything's good, man. I got hit by my own 203 round. He's like, I'll see you when you get down here. I'll see you when you get down here, man, you know? I'm like, oh, shit. Right, so he patches me up, we go down, right? I went to see the shock trauma guys, and they're like, oh, you got some pieces of shrapnel in you, right? We'll put you in for Purple Heart. I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're like, why? I was like, because it was my grenade. And they're like, how did you do that, man? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, what the thing about the angle, right? Must have been the angle, you know? So got a couple pieces of grenade in there from that. We went down and did a raid with our company down south, Islam Bazaar. We were there to do some drug interdiction. They were starting to get big, you know, bringing in the DEA and all those guys and doing a lot of drug stuff. You know, we always used to joke with the other platoons in our company, our buddies or team leaders, like, oh, you guys needed our help, so we'll come down and help you guys. Always got break balls amongst brothers. So we went down and did a raid with them, and the raid turned into like a 2 or 3 day clearing operation. At the end of the first day, we're in this compound and taking fire from about 200 meters away. There was this huge freaking cornfield over there. So we set up in this compound. I got a couple guys in this freaking well house. There's like a little half wall. We're shooting these dudes in these cornfields, did some gun runs with some Cobras. We get done with that, and the CO, he just calls on the hook, and he's like, hey, what's the BDA? And we're like, you know, we can't see anything, right, because these dudes disappeared in this cornfield. And he's like, well, go do a BDA, right? And we had like 200 yards of open ground, right, then cornfield. I'm like, hey, call back the CO and tell him freaking we're not doing it. Open ground, obviously not like ideal in the middle of the afternoon. And then there's a cornfield. I grew up on a farm, and you get lost in cornfields, and that's how bad shit happens, right? So battle damage assessment. So anytime that you get done with a firefight or, you know, drop some bombs, right, they want to get an assessment of the death and destruction that you caused, right? So they can put it in their little log books and, you know, check their boxes. So, and I'm like, man, tell the CO that's not happening, you know? And he was like, you need to go do it. And I'm like yelling back to the lieutenant. I'm like, hey, for real, tell him that is not tactically sound, right? To go do that at this time. Like, wait till it gets dark. We'll go do the BDA. Everything's gonna be all good in the hood, you know? He's like, negative, go do it now. So my buddy Kevin looks at me, I look at him, and we're both like, fuck it, let's go. So, you know, get out there online, nice little, like literally online, like skirmishers right style, going across this freaking wide open field. We get to the cornfield, and there's blood trails going into the cornfield. I told Kevin, I'm like, look, dude, we're not going in the cornfield, man. It's a good cornfield. I mean, it's probably like I don't know, like maybe 5-acre field, which isn't that big, right, relatively speaking. But, you know, if anyone's ever wandered into a cornfield, right, that's not where you want to be meeting somebody with AKs, you know what I mean, or grenades and all that stuff. So I'm like, hey, how about we just throw a couple grenades, hand grenades, into the cornfield? We'll call it a day. And he's like, okay, done deal. So we pull out some hand grenades, right? We're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, wham, lob these hand grenades into the cornfield. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, you see corn stalks fly up in the air. So it was hilarious. And we're like, all right, yeah, hey, you know, like 5 or 6 enemy dead, like whatever, dude. You know, and we go back across the field. So that night, right, we set up our compound, right, sandbag it up and all that stuff. And it's probably around like midnight, I was up there checking on the guys who were on post. I might have been on post, I don't know. But me and my ATL were up there, assistant team leader, were up there. And this dude comes out of the tree line, and he's watching us, right? And like, so in Afghanistan at that time, like there's very clear, like 90% of the time, like fighting starts at 7:30 in the morning and it ceases as soon as the sun goes down. If anybody's out at night, it's probably a dirtbag, right? And the ROEs at the time were like, hey, if anyone's actively observing you, right, or has like a radio, like you can zap that dude. This guy comes out, he's watching us and he's observing us. I call down to the boss. I'm like, hey man, we got somebody observing us, like permission to take him out. He's like, let it eat. So we're up there. My ATL's got a sniper rifle. I've got my M4. And I'm like, all right, we're going to count down, right? We count down on the T of 2, right? Sniper shoot. On the well of 1, we would blow charges, right? So we're going to do a countdown, T of 2. So I put my laser, right, on his stomach and below. My ATL's like, I'm going to hit him in the center chest. It was like 300-meter shot, like easy day. So we do a countdown. I'm like, hit him like 4 times, right? And you can hear meat slaps too. And ATL hit him right. Dude falls into the ditch. Don't think anything of it. Go down, and I wake up a couple hours later to go check on you know, my slack man. He was up there on watch. I go check on my buddy John, and he's like, dude, you're an asshole. I was like, why? And he's like, that dude you guys shot was laying in the ditch moaning till about an hour ago. I've been up here, he's been up there like 3-4 hours or so or whatever, you know, like this guy's in the ditch moaning the whole time he's on watch. He's like, you guys are assholes. So I call my ATL up there. I'm like, hey dude, were you holding high center chest on this guy? He's like, I might have shot him in the shoulder. Right? And I'm like, dude, the guy was moaning the whole time John's up here on watch. Like, he like, literally John's like, dude, I heard the guy die. Dude, Teeth, my ATL, he just looks at me. He's like, I'm like, dude, I shot him in the dick. You shot him, supposed to shoot him in the chest. That wasn't very nice. You know? So, and John's like, yeah, you guys are assholes. So we went down and helped out the company do that. And we had a fun time with them. At the end of the day, they're like, hey, you know, first platoon, what's your ammo expenditure, right? And they like shot, you know, very few rounds. So they shot a little bit of rounds, right? We shot some rounds, but then it was like third platoon. We shot like 50 203s, like 300 long range rounds, like tons of ammo. And they're like, what are you guys doing over there? You know, like 2 of my guys carried a law. My NARC, Leo, my non-amphibious reconnaissance corpsman, he'd carried a law for like 2 months. Between him and my other guy, Zach, right? They carried this law and they were like, hey, can we shoot this law at this compound? I'm like, no, you can't. And they're like, but we've been carrying this law for 3 months. We want to shoot it. We deserve to shoot it. So I'm like, all right, here's the deal, boys. If you want to shoot this law, you're going to do it by the book. You run out the door right there, take a kneel down next to that tree, sights up, you're going to kneel next to him, back blast area all secure, rocket, go through all the procedures you were taught. They go running out there, they set up all picture perfect, and they're supposed to be shooting at this door of this compound where we're taking fire from. And they're like, back blast area all secure, rocket, boom, bam, hits the compound 5 feet to the right of the door, right? Missed the door completely, right? And they come running back in going, oh, we forgot our ear pro. We forgot our ear pro. I'm like, dude, you missed the door, you idiots. You know, like, what are you doing, right? So he shows me the law, right? And it's the front sight post was sheared off. And so there was 3 jagged ridges at an angle like this. And he's like, I just used the middle ridge, right, to aim. And that's as good as I could do was you know, it hit the wall 5 feet to the right of the doorway. So then, you know, we get a call from the CO, right? And he's like, what's the BDA on that door? And I was like, good effects on target, door's open, right? Door's definitely not open, but I'm not going to rat my guys out, you know, and they forgot ear pro right there or there for but yeah, you can't make that stuff up. Towards the end of our deployment, the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines ripped out with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. So we had been working with 2-3 our whole entire deployment. I mean, these guys were our brothers. And 3-4 came in, and 2-3 did a better than average rip, right, which is a relief in place. So anytime a unit takes over for another unit, right, they do a little handshake, they do a turnover. Squad leaders are talking to squad leaders, right? This is what's going on in the AO. They do some patrolling together, right? That really get to know the area, right? So that way you're not starting from scratch. So us team leaders from my platoon, we went and talked to the sniper team leader and the squad leaders from 3-4. And we're like, hey fellas, like anything that you want to know about this area, ask us, because we've been everywhere. Everywhere out to 50, 60 clicks around our fob, we have been. And we hiked, we know where the dirt bags are, we know where they're not, we know where to go, where not to go. We've got pictures, right? We've got briefs, we got everything and anything that you want, right? Well, 3-4 was like, we don't care. Straight up, right? They didn't listen to a thing that the guys from 2-3 said, and they didn't listen to anything that we said. We specifically told the snipers, do not go in the district center because there's no one there, right? At the beginning of the deployment, the only people there were dirtbags, right? We want to go into a fight and get in a gunfight, this is where we went. But they're all dead or not wanting to play, right? Other villages north and west wanted to play. These dudes didn't listen. And the sniper team goes into the district center and steps on an IED, and 5 out of 6 of them were messed up. One dude had his jaw blown off, lower jaw blown off. The corpsman they had, both his eardrums were ruptured, and he was like one of the only ones that was like physically like able. A couple amputees, stuff like that. So they call QRF, the Quick Reaction Force. They go out, they hit an IED. Call the second QRF, they go out, they hit an IED. They cobbled together a little bit of a QRF out of those 2 QRFs and then started to push to their position. They also called us up like, hey, you know, Recon, can you guys come, you know, be a QRF and assist us? So we're like, yeah, absolutely. So we start pushing out. We push past the first dudes who are down with down vehicles, second guys, and we push down to this alley that the QRF had backed down. Well, when the QRF had got there, the first sergeant in charge of the QRF sent the guys down the alley towards the sniper team. And one of the lance corporals told them, hey, look, we need to have a sweeper, right? Minesweeper before we go down this alley. And he's like, no, we don't, push. So this lance corporal goes down the alley, steps on an IED, and gets killed. Bits and pieces of them everywhere. When we showed up, the first sergeant was standing there, completely combat ineffective. 1,000-yard stare, you know, and Kevin, right, went up to him. He's like, hey, first sergeant, you know, what's going on? You know, the dude just, bam, 1,000-yard stare, right? He's like, you know what? Why don't you get on the truck, right? Because this dude is ineffective, right? And this guy's very high up in the Marine Corps right now. He's like, yeah, get on the truck. So he got on the truck, done. And we're like, hey, sniper team's down this alley, let's push. So we pushed down there, started taking mortar and small arms fire, marked over 30 IEDs down this alley to get to these dudes. We actually ran out of spray paint. We're using our magazines to mark IEDs going down this alley. So we get down there, and the dude holding security, the dude with his jaw blown off, he'd packed his own face, right? And he was there on dude's on high alert. And we're like, hey man, like, you can take it easy, we got it from here. Started triaging the other guys that were there. I grabbed one of the dudes, and he's like, look, hey man, I need some water, right? Like, rule number 1, like, you don't give patients water. And I'm like, nah, dude, I'm not giving you any water, sorry, but we'll get you an IV here. Like, shock trauma is like right down the alley, right? I mean, you know, minus all the IEDs, and hopefully we won't get smoked by a mortar or gunfire on the way, right? But I'm like, look, shock trauma's right down there, dude, we're gonna get you hooked up with an IV. Everything's gonna be good, man. He's like, dude, I really need some water. All right, here's the deal. I'm gonna give you some water, but if you fucking die on me, I'm gonna come to the afterlife, I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass, right? Do not fucking die on me, right? He's like, I promise I won't die. So I pulled out my Nalgene out of my dump pouch with some piss warm water, and gave him some water, and he started coughing a little bit. I'm like, don't do it. Do not fucking do it, dude. Right? And he's like, no, yeah, I'm good, you know? So I pick him up, and we bring him down to the shock trauma vehicle. You know, I shook his hand, put him on the vehicle, and we went and loaded up in our trucks. During this time, the 3-4 CO and their gunner had flown in. And maybe they were already there, I don't really exactly remember, but they came out in a vehicle, right? And we got in our truck, in our Humvee. We started backing out of this alley, and like a dumbass, I've got my freaking door open. I'm telling my guide, Zach, right, hey, you know, left, right, like, stay in the tracks that we were in, right? Because we know there's No IEDs, at least we didn't think there was, right? We didn't think there was any IEDs. So we're backing down, I got my door open, blah, blah, get the back of the alley, and our MRAP started pulling out and pulled past us, probably maybe 10 yards in front of us, and hit a 100-pounder right in front, 100-pound IED right in the freaking track that we just drove over. And somehow we didn't set it off. And our MRAP had like probably most of our platoon in it, probably like 10 dudes, easy, 12, because we had the mix match people and, you know, like heat of battle type stuff, you know. And the IED was like so big that our truck like lifted off the ground. Dude, I was doing the check, right? Like, okay, here, make sure my dick's still attached, legs are still there, right? Like, whew, man, check my freaking turret gunner. Like, hey, Matty Lou, are you good? Right? Because like I saw something over in a ditch off to the left, and I thought it was either the turret gunner from the MRAP, which is my slack man, John, right? And I thought it was either him or it was my freaking turret gunner. It wasn't. It was the damn tailpipe, the exhaust from the muffler from the MRAP. And he was like, Matty Lou's like, hey, man, I'm right here. I'm good. I'm like, oh, whew, thank goodness. We had to freaking move dudes off there, right? We started getting them put on vehicles so we can get the fuck out of there. The battalion commander and the gunner show up, random MRAP, right? And they're like, they get out and they just start walking around, right? So I open the window. I'm like, hey, get the fuck in your truck. Like, I didn't know who they were, right? Like, couldn't see rank or anything like that. Not that I gave a shit, right? But you don't get out of your vehicle in this place, right? Unless you want to die. There's way too many IEDs in that area, like for you to just get out and just have a fucking leisurely stroll on a freaking whatever morning that was, you know? I'm like, hey, you don't walk anywhere without a sweeper, period. You don't walk anywhere. Get back in your fucking truck and stay there. And he bends down to look in my window, and I see the Lieutenant Colonel Chevron. He's like, oh, yo, hey, thanks for that. You know, I'm like, yeah, no problem. Close the window. I'm like, you dumb mother, you know, like just, you know, whole lot of expletives going on that day at that time, you know. So we peel off to the LZ. The medevac came in, Chinook out of freaking Bastion with some Brits on it, you know. I go and I end up grabbing the same dude that I had evac'd out of the freaking compound there, and he looked like hell. Like, I was like, hey, dude, you made me a deal. Do not die. Like, we're going from here. We're going to the bird. There's probably a hot British chick on it, right? Like, they like to suntan, like, naked over at Camp, like, Bastion. Like, you know, just think about that, right? Probably gonna be a hot Brit on this freaking bird, man, you know? And he just looked like hell. So bird lands, we ran him up there, ran all the rest of the casualties on there. My slack man, who's in the turret, the MRAP that got blown up, he ended up getting evac too, because he couldn't even remember, like, the last week prior to that. So he had, like, serious TBI. They all lived. Dude who was in our platoon, Angel Baeza, called me. I was like, hey, man, remember that sniper team? He's like, I'm at a Wounded Warrior hockey game, and they're all here. And they all lived. So, yeah, man, it's like the most awesome thing that I've ever heard in my entire life, man, because I had no idea. I don't remember their names. I just know that we went there to save their lives, and we did, you know. Yeah, the only one that was KIA was the dude who got pushed down the alley by the guy who's now a Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. I'm pretty sure that dude got a Bronze Star for that day that he doesn't deserve. He was combat ineffective and he got his men killed. Something that he's got to live with. You know, it's what happens when a guy who's spent all his time on the drill field and whatever, and now he's just a first sergeant in charge of QRF out in the middle of freaking Wild West Afghanistan. I mean, for the rest of that day, we had to go back out there right after we had evac those guys, and we had to go back out. So we had down vehicles out there. So we got out there, recover our vehicles, get mortars and like literally landing like within 5 yards of the truck, like peppering the truck, getting shot at, right? Got to recover all these vehicles, right? And then get our asses back to the freaking fob. And it was like a day of mayhem. Like, cause 3/4 didn't have their shit together. Man, that's it, period. And it like, that's like, I've talked about it with a lot of my friends a lot, and the men that I served with in that platoon, and like our platoon in that deployment, as far as a recon platoon goes, was a junior platoon. And my ATL had never deployed before, right? Most of the dudes in my team had not deployed before, right? The team leaders in the platoon had deployed, but a lot of the guys were junior. But it was the best recon platoon that I've ever served with. Period. They didn't have all their inserts, right? Jump and dive and all that. But what we had was a bunch of hungry, hard dudes who were well trained. And thanks to like my buddy Kevin, he was like my best friend, like I said, like worst days of my life he and I spent together, especially on that deployment. Good platoon sergeant, right? Good leadership at this small unit level. And like these dudes were freaking meat eaters, man. They're like, there was nothing that we couldn't do. That platoon, we did more greenside, more reconnaissance and surveillance than any recon Marines had done in the war at that time. Traditional reconnaissance and surveillance, right, as the Marine Corps doctrine. Work for an infantry battalion, right? Go out alone and unafraid, right, behind enemy lines, in enemy lines, right, around enemy lines, right? Find the dirt bags out and then freaking hit those dudes. You know, quite literally after that day, 90% of our platoon had grade 3 or grade 2 concussions, which means that they all, you know, according to Purple Heart rules, all of them are supposed to have a Purple Heart, but they don't. You know, I know for a fact that we got put in for Bronze Stars, me, Kevin, Lance, Ben, and those didn't materialize ever because the Marine Corps award system's broken. And because a first sergeant probably got a Bronze Star with a V at the end of that tour because of his impeccable leadership during that time, even though he froze up like a coward. I mean, that's really, you know, because the award system's broken. I've seen dudes do stuff that they deserve a freaking Silver Star for, and they might have gotten a NAM with a V, right? But an officer sat on his ass in the cop, you know, in some fob somewhere, gets a Bronze Star, right? Because freaking, you know, he did a good job, you know, doing whatever it was that he oversaw, right? Because we're not an effective warfighting institution, and we haven't been for a long time. Colonels, full bird colonels, generals, they're grandfathers. They're not warriors anymore, they're politicians. Majors and above, a lot of them, not all of them, because I know some very good officers, right? I can count on these two hands the amount of officers that I consider to be good that I would go into combat with, right? But there's a lot of them that are politicians. They're looking out for themselves instead of their men. So the Commandant of the Marine Corps and Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps came out during that deployment when 2-3 was still there. The Commandant fielded questions first, and guys are hitting them with questions, right? They flew, and I'll give them some props, right? I mean, it was under the cover of darkness. They flew out to the most kinetic area, right, in Afghanistan, for the Marine Corps anyways at the time. And they came out to talk to us. They're like, yep, team leaders and squad leaders, you gotta go talk to the Commandant and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. We're like, oh man, this is, you know, kind of cool, right? They came out to see us or whatever. Dog and pony show. At least it wasn't a dog and pony show big time, you know? So we go out there, Commandant's fielding questions, right? Did well. Personable guy, right? And I'm like, all right, cool, I can get on board with this. Then the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps goes to talk, and this will show you how broken the system is. He sits there and he says, I was at a picnic in Washington, D.C. with the retired sergeants major and master guns, and we all decided and talked about how you are making the history. You all are the legends of the Marine Corps. You're making Marine Corps history out here, right? And one of the section leaders from the CAT section, and this dude was wild. This dude was wild. I seen him do some wild stuff. He's standing right next to me, and he goes loud, right? And we're kind of towards the back of the crowd, and it's not a big crowd because it's only one company of dudes out there, and it's just squad leaders and team leaders. He's like, I'm out here. My men, or he just had one of those guys get killed a couple weeks prior. He's like, I'm out here. My men are dying and getting their legs blown off, and you're at a motherfucking picnic? Fuck you. Like, about that loud, too. And I was like, oh. I just started moving to the other side of the crowd. I'm like, man, I'm not going to be caught up in this crap right here. I want to get promoted, bro. But he was like, no shit. I mean, it was loud. He heard it. Sergeant Major heard it, too. And he's like, seriously, we're out here dying and you're having picnics? And it's a legit question. You're having a fucking you want to come out here to the Nauzad, Afghanistan, and you want to talk to me about a picnic you're having in D.C. with the pencil pushers? Get out of here, bro. Seriously. We are fighting and dying on the daily, and you're having picnics. You want to come out here and talk about a picnic? Try to fluff our ego, say, oh, you guys are the legends of the history of the Marine Corps is being made out here? Come on, no, man. No. That dog don't hunt. You know, so he wasn't wrong. It's just that I don't know how at that time of our deployment, like I don't know how to say it any differently, I guess, other than that. We're out here fighting and dying. Our fucking brothers are getting their legs blown off and shit, and you're having a fucking picnic. Get the fuck out of here. Get on your fucking whirly bird and go leave us the fuck alone so we can do what men do. You know? Maybe you should remember what it's like to be down in our shoes. Right? There's the problem with leadership today in the Marine Corps all over. They don't remember what it was like to be a freaking sergeant, a corporal, a lance corporal, any of that. He didn't respond to it. About 90% of that was happened because the dude had a couple more things to say too, because he didn't just stop at that. You know, but that was like the tip of the iceberg, because it was like one dude did it, and then like it was like the grumbling start. You could hear it in the crowd, right? Like, yeah, he's right. Like, glad somebody said something, you know, like all that stuff, you know. So after that event with 3-4 happened with the sniper team, we were still there for about another month, and shortly. Oh, when we did the memorial service for the Marine who got killed, our CT Sergeant Major and the MEB Sergeant Major came out. And they brought all the team leaders and squad leaders in. And I've never heard a more unprofessional diatribe come out of senior enlisted, right? We'll use that, air quotes, senior enlisted, because I don't know where that name came from. I've never heard unprofessionalism like I've heard that, because they came in and they motherfucked 2-3. And talked more shit about the dudes that we had just, maybe they forgot that we were there and we overlapped or something. They talked more trash about those dudes, talked about how many guys got killed, exact numbers, KIAs, WIAs, right? And talked shit about what happened, except for that we were there for all of it. And these dudes are our brothers. And then, like, if I could have gotten up and gotten away with knocking a sergeant major out, I would have done it right then and there. Unprofessional. Both sergeant majors, and they know who they are too. Right, Hoopy was one of them. Shouldn't have said what he said. Right, like, you don't come in and you don't freaking badmouth dudes are out there sweating and bleeding and dying. If you don't even know you don't know what we're doing. You don't get to play Monday morning quarterback to what we're doing out there. You don't. Period. You know what I mean? There's nothing. There's no excuse for any of that behavior. There's no excuse for being tactically unsound. That kind of stuff right there is the stuff that needs to be is rampant in the Marine Corps today, in the military as a whole today, right? Because as warfighting institution, we've lost our teeth. There's a simple answer to that, and it's because the Marine Corps doesn't want guys like us to be the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Because I have a big mouth, and I'll tell you like it is, and it's a critical strength. It's a strength at times, and it's a critical vulnerability at others. A lot of times, a vulnerability. Right? It stopped me from getting, probably promoted as quickly, stopped me from getting some awards. But you want to know what? Like, I care about my men first and foremost, period. It took me, like my wife will even tell you, right, that I loved my men more than I loved her. Until I got court-martialed and figured out about the real Marine Corps, Like, I loved my job more than I loved my family. Which was wrong, right? But when you're in that lifestyle and like you want to be the best warrior that there is, right? That's all you're focused on, is being the best and how you can be the best, right? But the Marine Corps doesn't want guys like us to be in those positions, because inevitably at times you have to cut some corners to get your men what they need to get, whether that's training, whether that's schools, whether that's time off, whatever it is. Some corner inevitably needs to be cut, right? Because of all the layers of bureaucratical bullshit and wasted time. Some corners need to be cut, and that's why dudes don't get promoted, because they get caught doing something, right? Or they stick up for themselves or their men. And then they won't, and then they do something, they won't get promoted. Because one piece of paper these days makes it so you're unpromotable, right? They don't want people to tell you how it actually is. They want a refined politician. They want somebody who can stand up there and, I could go through this whole entire interview right now without saying one F-bomb. I can do it. I brief generals, colonels, do it all. I can do it all the time. But you know what? They don't want someone that could stand in front of Congress and tell them how it actually is. Because you want to know what? Sergeant Major Marine Corps don't even know how it actually is these days. He doesn't know how it is these days, right? They've forgotten. Sergeant Major Marine Corps right? That dude's out of touch. You know, Sergeant Major Zekafus, who's one of the greatest warriors that I know, was in the running one year to be Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, and they didn't choose him. You want to know why? Because he wasn't married. Marine Corps doesn't want actual warriors, you know, up there at the top, to say it like it is. And it's a sad, sad thing. It really is a sad thing. Like, it's not the same Marine Corps that we went into, right? And the old guys always say that, like, it's not the same. But like now, post-COVID, it is not the same. Well, and all the death and bad stuff that you've seen, you know, like we're up in a hide site doing RNS, and then it turned into like a guardian angel for the grunts who were doing a hit, and we saw this ambush kick off, and we seen this dude get fucking hit in the leg with an RPG and took his leg off, right? And he was going to the bird, thumbs up, right? Like we saw it through the spotting scope. Like I bring him to the medevac chopper, right? Tourniqueted up, right? And dude's giving his guys a thumb up. 5 minutes later in the air, he had a brain aneurysm and died. One dude took a mortar to the chest and lived. You know, frickin' dude was in a HESCO house. They're building a HESCO house in Dahana. Frickin' mortar came through, hit the dude in the chest, blew up, messed up all the dudes around him. And this dude who took the one right in the chest ended up living. And I saw his body armor. His plate was melted to about that thick. You could see where all his rounds cooked off, like the springs were hanging out of his mags and stuff. And groin pro, like the goofy nut pro that like they used to want you to wear, but no one did. I started wearing it after that because that groin pro saved his freaking dick and balls because it was all puffed, filled with shrapnel and stuff. It was freaking wild, man. It was the craziest thing I ever seen. And like, yeah, dude lived, you know, and the dude that was my turret gunner on that day that we got blown up, he died of an opiate overdose about 3 or 4 years ago. And problem with our generation is that the war killed some guys. They just don't know it yet, whether that's from opiate addiction or, you know, their personal demons, or some of those guys went on deployment after that. That was worse than that one, even as far as like losses go, you know. Guys who deployed to Afghanistan around that time frame, like a lot of dudes had some rough like deployments, you know, like, and that was a rough deployment for us, but like we came through. You know, like for us as Americans, we're all very public about, for the most part, about things. Oh, PTSD, even like Vietnam veterans. Like when I was growing up, right, you see like Vietnam veterans, you know, and people would talk about them and like, oh yeah, they've got, you know, they've never been right since then, right? Because they have PTSD, and we know that now, you know, and you know, I always wondered kind of how those guys felt, you know, and now I know because of what happened with Afghanistan. Like I know our war went twice as long as theirs did. We saw what happened there, so I know how they feel. Yes, there's more support, right? A lot of people pay more lip service anyways in the support thing for veterans these days than they did back then. They don't spit on us and stuff. A lot of people do just pay lip service. And this is the first generation where fathers and sons, where sons have been in the same dirt that their dad fought on years before. All war is the same, but different, right? Like war transcends all generations. Right? I can talk with a Korean War vet and we can tell stories all day long and be best friends, right? Because we had shared experiences and stuff, you know, but the warriors that are left on this earth, I mean, World War II guys, you know, like there's not very many of them left, but Korea, Vietnam, and us, like we know what it's like to be left behind, to not have the country make good on their promise to us, you know. But I've never thought about like the enemy, you know, and like there's a lot of stuff that plays into that, right? Their religion, right? Their, you know, regionalization, Pashtun tribe, like all the different tribes in Afghanistan. But that's, dude, that's really like highly doubt that, you know, like we're going to be like the Vietnam generation where in 20 years I'm going to go have a dinner with some Taliban fighter that I was fighting against in Helmand province in 2009, right? That's not going to happen for us, you know, like it did for some of those guys from Vietnam. I'm extremely curious as to like see that, like, you know, how do the PSTDs, right? Like, you know, before you have full-blown PTSD, the PSTDs, you know, how does the PSTDs affect those guys, you know, and how are their thoughts and feelings on that? We trained some of the commandos, or we had some commandos work with us, right? And just like, you know, it's their country, right? So I was like, hey, you go in first, you know? We had this dude, Marky Mark, right? He looked like an Afghani Mark Wahlberg, right? And he had a steel pot helmet. He'd been fighting the Russians when he was a kid. Right now he's like working with us. So we're doing this hit with the company, and it turned into a clearing operation, or this hitting this bazaar and drug lab and all this other hunk of bunk. It turned into a clearing operation, like 2 or 3 days long, and we were just whooping it on. And this dude, Marky Mark, goes up on the roof, on this roof with one of my guys, right? And we're getting into it. And he's like, yo, Marky Mark's rounds are hitting like 200 yards in front of us, man. They're like 300, 400 yards out. I go, dude was carrying an M16A2. I'm like, twist the rear elevation thing, just raise it up and tell him to keep shooting. So this dude puts his gun on 3-round burst, brat, 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 drops a mag, pulls the mag out, looks at it, and he goes, fuck me, and just throws it behind him. And the mag like lands like right down at my feet. Right? And I'm like, what the fuck, Marky Mark? So I pick it up, I'm like, Marky Mark, you need this. Right? Like jam ammo, you need this. He's like, yeah. So I give it to him. Right? Pulls his gun up, blah, blah, drops another magazine, pulls it out, fuck me, throws it behind him again. And I'm like, this is my life, dude. Right? This is my life, man. I got dysentery after that hit. But anyways, yeah, those are like the big Afghanistan deployment stuff. I mean, it was a good deployment. We got to do like more traditional reconnaissance and surveillance than any recon Marine that I'd know of at the time, in the most pure sense. You know, and a lot of the SOPs that we enacted there, I brought with me when I went and worked at Special Operations Training Group later on and helped implement them into the RNS course and stuff. So we came back from that deployment, right? And it's like getting in the force used to be a screener and all that, and they had shut Force Recon down in 2006 to make the Marine Special Operations Battalion, or MARSOC. And then, you know, the Marine Corps, right, was like, oh man, you know, we've messed up, right? Like we took our our deep reconnaissance asset, right, our MEF level asset, and like now we don't have control of them, right? So, you know, originally there was supposed to be one MSOB team on the MEU that was going to take the place of the Force Recon platoon, right? And the Marine Corps thought they were going to have control of this whole system, and then didn't realize that they were going to go be a part of SOCOM, and oh, we have no control. Yeah, you know, in the Marine Corps, how they are with control, right? They're just freaking control freaks. So they stood Force Recon back up in maybe the end of 08, beginning of 09. And when I came home from Afghanistan, basically we were like, all right, you're going down to Force Recon. We're like, all right, cool. All right, we're going to make this thing what it used to be. Like when I was a Lance Corporal working for those guys, right? Like this is what I've always wanted to do. Like, yes, we will make Force Recon. And basically, like my buddy Kevin, who's my platoon sergeant, right? Like I got spoiled. Like I've known Kevin longer than I've known anybody in the Marine Corps. Between him and my buddy John Finney, I've known them since 2001. Right, that's a long time. And with Kevin, he and I deployed together, and then I was in a platoon with him for 5 years, maybe, you know? And like, we look very similar. We used to tell the MEU commander, we actually had the MEU commander believed, and the sergeant major believed that we had the same mom, different dad, and our mom was kind of a free spirit. Right? It's like, and our pictures, like on my MEU ID, I had his picture on there, and on his MEU ID, I had my picture on there. Like, so we look very similar, act very similar. Like I said, dude's my best friend. But he was like, hey, let's take the whole platoon down the force. I'm like, all right, let's do that. Most of the guys didn't, but we took a couple guys down, started our freaking training. You know, we started the official, you know, MEU workup with SOTG, right? And so we start doing this workup, and then Arab Spring happens. So we started workup maybe in like February, right? We're doing the RNS course. The RNS course for us was really more of a collaboration, like of me with the instructors. Like, hey, this is what we did. And the instructors are my friends, right? Like, hey, this is what we did in Afghanistan. Like, this is how we did our contingency planning, right? And like, dude, it was good. It was great training for all of us, right? Because it was like, here, like these are the most current TTPs that are being used, and this is how we implement them. And then Arab Spring happened, right? And they're like, all right, you guys are deploying. It might have been like 2 weeks, right? Like literally, I went home. I told my wife, because we were supposed to get married in May. I was like, hey, I got good news, I got bad news. I got roses, I got wine. I'm like, hey, good news, bad news. Good news, we're gonna get married this weekend. Bad news, I'm leaving next week. Got married, and we moved on. So the next week, it's weird, right? I say like the next week, but we deployed, but we did our CERTX, right? Our certification exercise while we were deployed, but we were off the coast of North Carolina. You know what I mean? So we had to run missions, right? Because all the infantry companies had to get certified in their raids, right? Helicopter raid, AAV raid, you know, whatever boat raid, whatever raid, right? There's no boats still at that time. No boat company wasn't back like it is now, right? But right, we had to do raids, so we had to do the reconnaissance and surveillance for that. So literally, we were on deployment, but we're off the coast of North Carolina, right? And so we had to do basically what we did the reconnaissance and surveillance for the raids. So we do RNS for the helo company. They come in, do the hit, and then we would go to extract with them, but we wouldn't extract, we go back to our hide site, next company would go in. So we could work all the link-up procedures that we needed to do with the infantry companies and all that, and then give them all the products, blah, 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 right? Like, it wasn't about us, it was about them. You know, it's not about me, it's about you. So I told the instructors, I told my buddy Chris, I'm like, look, dude, we're deployed like right now, technically. You know, we're just gonna do this little cycle the next 3 days, right? Of like RNS, hit, RNS, hit. We're not doing it. Hide sites aren't changing, all that. So I'm gonna do something I've never done before. I'm calling up my wife, I'm calling up my guys' wives, and we're gonna have them meet us at the LZ down the street, and we're gonna have some pizza, and we're gonna freaking hang out with our wives. So he was like, cool, let's do it. So I freaking called up the wife, told my guys, like, hey, call your wives right now. They want to meet us at LZ Dove, outside Combat Town. Give them the grid coordinates. My wife knows how to get to a grid, and we're freaking good. So we had ordered some pizzas. Wives came out, you know, may or may not have gone out into the bushes with a ghillie suit and cami paint on, and, you know, do what Marines do, you know, a little marital coitus, you know, and right, I'm like, gotta claim that, you know, and then we went back to running ops, and then we deployed. The MEU is a funny thing, right? Like you can get all kinds of work and action, or you can do nothing, you know. So we deployed early because of Arab Spring, so that found us cutting gator squares off the coast of freaking Libya. There's all kinds of, you know, intelligence stuff coming in, and like potential missions that could go down, and all this stuff. You know, my ATL for my previous deployment, he'd actually been on he had just gone right onto a MEU when we got home from Afghanistan, and he was on the trap mission that was in Libya, right? So they're like, hey, we could definitely like get in on this. So we're like trying to work, you know, missions, ops, right, and all this stuff. And like, obviously the president said there's not gonna be any boots on the ground in Libya. So we knew immediately we weren't doing anything. So we kind of just stopped paying attention to that picture. You know what I mean? Like, all right, what's next can we like do? We deployed with 2-2. Fox company of that unit, this company commander was my old roommate's roommate. Right, they were lieutenants together. So I lived in what I called the Fraternization Center of Excellence. My roommate and I lived together from when he was a first lieutenant. I was a sergeant until I was a gunny, and he was a major. And we called it the Fraternization Center of Excellence because certain people at the command didn't really like that very much. So he's like, oh yeah, you know, my buddy Justin, he's the company commander. You guys will get along great, and we did. And one of his platoon sergeants is a guy that was with me in 2-6. Got along with the first sergeant, the company gun, all of them, all the staff and us. We all meshed very well. So on that deployment, you know, we did a lot of stuff with them. Went to Djibouti again. Way nicer this time than the first time I was there in 2002. They got these baboons, right? If you can feed the baboons MREs, they'll open them up and they'll throw away the accessory packet. They know where the food is. Like they're crazy smart, right? Like, and they cross the road like doing a freaking tactical column, like set out security. They go across like they're like crazy little critters. My buddy Josh, who's the company gunny from Fox Company, right? He takes an MRE, throws it to the stinking baboons, right? Or a couple, right? Throws to the baboons. the smallest baboon. He sneaks up behind it while it's eating its MRE, throws a 2-2 Warlords t-shirt over and pulls its arms out of the stinking sleeves and runs away before the big baboons get pissed off, you know? So anytime you go past the family of baboons, they'd be sitting there doing their thing. And this baboon's got a 2-2 t-shirt on. Man, it was freaking awesome. So we're there doing some training. Always had the luxury of having a vehicle when we hit ports or wherever, because you know we do high risk training, you know, jumping, diving, so we have to have a vehicle to get people to medical facilities. That was our excuse anyway. So we had a vehicle out there as well. So one day we went down to the French paratrooper camp. It used to be a Foreign Legion camp back when we were there in 2002. We went down there. And the first sergeant, this dude, Jeff Dagenhart, heisted some beer, actually all their beer from them. He was like, "Give me your beer." And they were like, "Yeah, no, you know, they didn't habla, you know, or, you know, they didn't parlez-vous or whatever they say in French, you know what I mean?" But I'm like, I'm giving them some of my team poker chips, right? So I had team poker chips and, you know, and they're like giving us all their beer and Jeff's just taking all of it anyway. So we went into Djibouti City, Jeff and the company Gunnery, they went to Djibouti City and got a bunch of beer, and us and Fox Company were out in the middle of the desert having a, you know, impromptu kind of warrior night, mess night, right? Is the thing that Marines are supposed to do, right? Like a bunch of jarheads can't get in trouble in the middle of the desert if they're just getting shit-faced. You know, like the worst thing they can do is pass out and I guess maybe get smoked by a black mamba snake or something, but which that wouldn't be cool. But you know what I mean? You can't, as responsible as you can be with a group of Marines, the middle of the desert is the place to give them a bunch of booze. Problem was that the battalion commander came out a couple days after that, and as he was driving out there, he's seized a baboon family with a 2-2 Warlords shirt on. And then he's like, all right, so who put the t-shirt on the baboons, right? It's like, dude, Guffey's like, puts his hand right, he's like, I did, right? And so he got lifed out about that, got chewed out. And then you're like, and who authorized the mess night out there? And, you know, Justin's like, yeah, that was me. And then so they got chewed out about that. But I think it was worth it to their guys, you know. Went to take 5 or 6 guys to train the hostage rescue team in Qatar. We had just been in Jebel Ali in Dubai for a port, and this is like a big event, right? Like go train the hostage rescue team. And then there was like some event that they were doing too that I wasn't even aware of until we hit the ground. But the main thing was the training. So I had come up with this whole POI, like a period of instruction, right? Training schedule for a few weeks, right? This is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. They wanted to do CQB and maybe some light breaching type things. Come up with this whole freaking period of instruction. Right, we're going to fly off the boat, fly into Bahrain. I'm supposed to secure ammo from the fast company in Bahrain. And then we're going to fly over to Qatar. And then freaking, you know, we're going to do our training. So we go to get on the birds, section of Ospreys, right? They always fly in pairs. Load all our gear and us on the first Osprey. Right, we're out to sea. And the bird takes up, starts to list to the left, bam, drops down on the ground. Right, like, hey, we need you guys to go get on the other bird. It's too heavy. I'm like, yeah, obviously. We're doing race tracks around Bahrain International Airport, and all of a sudden the left wing of the bird shudders. And the crew chief's looking out the freaking wing, right? And I'm like, oh, that's weird. You know, well, we go in and we land, and they landed that thing like a freaking airplane, right? So instead of like coming in, hovering, setting down, right, the rotors weren't all the way down, like in flight mode, but they're like maybe like halfway up. But when we came down out of the sky, the thing was like, and skirted into a stop. And I was like, man, that's really weird, dude. You know, like, I don't know. I've never landed an Osprey at an international airport. I don't even like riding into things. I like to jump out of them. That's about it. You know what I mean? Like, get me up, get me out. Like, we're good. Like, those things aren't, you know, cool. I'm talking to the crew chief, and he goes, dude, something malfunctioned, man. They're like, not good. Come to find out, this part malfunctioned in the Osprey. And they said that if we would have done one more racetrack, we would have fell right out of the sky. They had to fly a team of specialists from the States out to fix that freaking bird. So basically crash landed the bird in Bahrain, right? I'm like, oh, all right, well, you know, not the first time I've been on a, you know, crash landing, but, and the pilots, right, we had just left the port the night before, right? So they didn't have their go bags or nothing like that. They were stuck in Bahrain for a week, had to go get new IDs and all that stuff. But so we're in Bahrain, staying at the Gulf Hotel, which 5-star hotel, right? Like pimp accommodations, like $140 a day per diem or 120, something like that. A lot of money a day per diem, and we're there for a week. You know, the only thing I got to do in a week is get ammo coordinated with Fast Company. Like, all right, this is easy. Go to Fast Company. Them dudes freaking hook us up with a, they're like, you know what? We've got all these magazines jammed up, ready to go for our being on QRF, right? And they're like at the end of their life cycle, which we get all this pre-packed ammo from these dudes. Josh, our platoon commander, was already over there talking with the guys in Qatar. I'm like, hey, look, you know, skipper said, make sure that you got no magazines in your gear. All our magazines have got to be in our gun cases, right? Everything is just so, because the Qatari customs are a bunch of jerks, right? So we go to Qatar. We're going through customs. Guess who's got magazines in this stuff? This guy right here. So imagine a guy that looks like Harry Dunn off Dumb and Dumber, but he's Middle Eastern, and he's wearing man jammies and a freaking man dress, and his freaking the sandals that are too short, and always, I don't know why they can't find the right size sandals. So imagine Harry Dunn, right, wanting to freaking, you know, black, you know, pumpkin, you know, hair and all that, right, wanting to deport you and being a real, like, you know, you're trying to be nice to the dude so you don't get deported out of the country. So I'm the guy, right? I didn't inspect my own stuff, inspect my guys, almost got deported. You know, we go there to train with these guys. And, you know, I've worked my butt off fucking putting on this little training plan together. And these dudes come showing up in some brand spanking new armored Yukons, blacked out, like nice trays in the back, brand new MP5s, brand new SIG 226s, right? Big fat Gucci sunglasses, like for real Gucci sunglasses, you know, like not just talking about like cool looking ones, like Gucci, the brand, you know, freaking dude looks like freaking Jay-Z. Middle Eastern Jay-Z gets walking out, right, freaking with his Gucci's on, and they've got like purple camis on. They didn't give one, all they want to do is a fun shoot every day. That's it. No, everything a fun shoot, but the one thing they did want to do was breaching, and they wanted to learn about explosive breaching. I'm like, look, man, number one, we don't have any explosives, right, and that's like by design, right, because I'm not teaching you guys how to build explosives, and then, you know, oh man, maybe we're like, you know, end up back here in this country in 10 years. And now you're using the things I taught you against us. Like, not that dog don't hunt, you know what I mean? But no explosives. Sorry, fellas, you know? But we did bring our mechanical breaching stuff, and we did bring some Sesams kits with us, and we lit them up in the shoot house with Sesams. It was a good time. We lit them up good. And then we had this big, at the end, we had this big freaking, like 2 weeks of training. We had this big freaking feast with these guys. We met the Qatari general to play some like soccer with them and stuff like that. It was pretty fun, but they were not like, you know, tactically sound. The training like did not occur. We shot the shit out of their pistols and MP5s though, and they shot a lot out of our guns too. But oh well. But we did go to the Marine Corps ball while we were there in Qatar. So like first time I've been to a ball in a like foreign country. We'd done a ball down in Curacao doing some training, but you know, that was just like with us and like the Dutch Marines. But this was like Marine Corps ball at the embassy. First time I realized that there was female MSG guards. Had no idea there was female embassy guards. Had no idea. So we went to the embassy in our Alphas. There's a whole bunch of expats there, and you know, like freaking talking to all the MSG, the detachment and stuff like that. And when the ball was over, we went to the Marine house, and you know, being good Marines that we were, we got pretty schnockered. When it was time to go, I vividly remember one of my guys, like, I'm like, all right, let's round the guys up. You know, like the freaking skipper's like, hey, it's time, you know, time to go. Right? I'm like, all right, well, let me round the guys up. And we're in the Marine house, and one of my guys is running down the hallway, no blouse on, no tie from his Alphas, just, you know, long sleeve, no core frames on. He's running, sliding down the hallway in his socks. Woo! I'm like, uh-oh, time to go, boys. Exfil, exfil. Let's go. It's getting wild up in here. We're in the Red Sea, you know, and they do a swim call, right? Like every Sunday. Right, sometimes you can fish off the stern gate, and then every once in a while they're like, all right, we're going to do a swim call on Sunday. Well, guess who has to be the safety swimmers and security for that? The Recon Marines, right? The Recon Marines, the amphibious fellas, you know? They drop the stern gate. We got a couple guys out in Zodiacs, like on Shark Watch, and we had some safety swimmers, right? And they're very clear, right? They're like, hey, if you can't swim, don't jump off the stern gate because it's like 1,000 feet deep where we are, right? The boat can't stop, right? It just goes like slow, like very, very slow. So you can catch up to the boat, right? Like if you can't swim, don't jump off the boat, moral of the story, right? But every time, and like every once in a while, you get to jump off the hangar deck, it's like 30-foot drop, from the elevator on the side of the boat. You jump off, swim to the back of the boat, get back on, right? Well, wouldn't you know that people in the Navy, primarily, who can't swim, which I don't know why you join the Navy if you can't swim or you don't want to learn to swim, guess what they do? They jump off the side of the boat, whether it's off the hangar or off the stern gate, and every time, right, someone jump off, right, and like you could see them because you'd be in the water, like treading water, and we'd put our fins on and stuff, so... Right? And they're doggy paddling for their life because the boat ain't stopping, buddy, And they're so it's right there. It's right there, right? And we let them struggle for a while, man. And then like, all right, here, get on the boat, dude. Like, don't get off the boat, We were going to do like, hey, we need to bust the boats out and get some boat time in, right? Get the Zodiacs out, right? Make sure the engines are running, right? And so let's make it a training event. And so we're like, all right, we're going to do some, stern gate ops, right? We're just going to push off the stern gate. We're going to go over to the Mesa Verde, to the Whip Beyond. We're going to hit all the decks or all the boats in the ARG, right? Do some bow touches, and then freaking come back, right? We'll make it however long of an evolution. It's when we realized this day that the Navy and the Marine Corps have two different sea states. Theirs doesn't sound as bad as ours, right? I can't remember what it's like. Like our sea state 3 is like their sea state 2 or something like that, but nobody realized this at the time. So they're like, oh, it's a sea state 2, right? For us, Marine Corps is like sea state 3 or 4, right? There was like 13-foot swells out there in the med, right? So we're on the freaking edge of the boat, got everything, ready to rock and roll. And like we brought some of our enablers with us too, right? No weapons, none of that, just slick, right? UDT vest, slick, and we're just gonna do our paddles and we're just gonna do our thing, right? So we push off the boat. Right, and we're out in the freaking van. Engines are going, boat's rolling off, and I'm like, oh shit. One, that boat's really big. Like, you don't realize it until you're sitting in the middle of the freaking ocean in a Zodiac, right? In a dinghy, really, And then, oh man, these waves are freaking big, right? And they were like big, man, like 13-foot freaking swells, dude. So I had to keep the engine pegged. Like I got the engine out of the water, right? Like, right. Launch it out of the water, bam, slam down, like dudes are getting bloody noses and stuff. We'll go hit the other boats, right, do some bow touches, and then we're gonna go back to the baton, right, the dirty nickel, and do wet well operations. That means that the back of the boat essentially sinks down, so water goes in the back of the boat, and there's water in the well deck, right, in the lower V. And then we were gonna take the boats in and go up to the ramp, right, and that's like the end of our training. Well, it's crazy rough in there. And so we're going into the boat, right? And like if you're in a Zodiac, right, the one man, right, if you're going in the shore, one man puts his arm up, like on either side. And when when it gets shallow, he, drops his hand so you can pull the engine. So we're going in, right? I'm like, hey, like latches up, we're going in. So we're going into the well deck. Freaking dude, my one man, like as soon as we got into the well deck, like a swell caught us and he dropped his hand down. So the swell caught us and is moving us like this way. He dropped his hand down because he was like nervous. So I killed the engine and pulled it. Well, that swell rolled us up the side of the wing wall inside the boat. And like, so we were like vertical like that, like straight sideways. I could have high-fived the chief at the top of the freaking wing wall. That's how high up we were. Well, 2 of my guys fell out of the boat, out of the Zod into the freaking well deck. And now I'm like, oh shit, now we got like a real problem because this is like this is how people drown and die, right? It's bad, So I'm like dropping the engine, trying to start the engine, the boat's slamming down back and forth, right? Dudes are trying to get my ATL and my comm guy, that's who fell out of the freaking boat, trying to get them back in the boat, right? They're trying to get them with paddles, get the engine started, finally get them to hang on to the freaking broach line on the freaking boat, and just stick it like Navy SEAL style on the ramp. And I'm like, oh, whew, man, we're all alive. We're like, Mike, my one man, like, what the hell happened, man? He's like, dude, freaking that swell caught me by surprise. Like, I thought we were on, like, tip over, like, flip the boat. And I'm like, son of a bitch, right? I'm like, all right, cool, crisis averted, everybody's good, right? Everything's cool. Well, they have cameras in the well deck, and a couple hours later, like, Staff Sergeant, you gotta go see the MEU commander. So the MEU commander, he actually ended up being my boss at SOTG for a while after this too. So I had to go see the boss man, right? And he's like, Staff Sergeant, you wanna tell me what happened in the well deck? And I'm like, yeah, sure, sir. And he's like, cause look, turns his little screen, and there's the whole video of everything going down. I'm like, damn it. But I'm like, hey, look, miscommunication, right? It was rough in there, like, as you can see. I mean, you see, it was straight up violent in that thing. We freaking, I had to go see him and talk to him about that, and, like, explain to him I'd be more safe next time, because he was a pilot by trade, so he was pretty kind of a risk-averse guy. With that platoon, we went down to Curacao, trained down there on 2 separate occasions, did some, like, they call it the Deuce Tricolores tournament or something like that, which is like the Dutch Recon and some Guyana yo-yos and some other countries get together, and we had a competition against each other, see who was the best. Obviously, we won, duh. But we worked Amphib SOP down there and did some partying with the Dutch Recon Marines, which I'm going to tell you something right now. You think that us United States Marines are crazy? The Dutch are on another level of crazy. So after the end of the second tournament we did, we have a party on our on base. We had our own bar on the Dutch base, and they're hanging out with us, partying. They're like, let's go downtown to Willemstad, the capital. Let's go down to Bermuda's, which is this huge nightclub, and go party. I'm like, all right. They're like, you drive us. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll drive you. So I got probably like 12 of these dudes at least in this rental van. They're hanging out the windows, yelling. I mean, like, you drunk Marines, right? Like United States Marines now, like on steroids, these dudes, right? And they're all like my size too, right? Most of them anyways. So we go down to this bar, pull into this parking spot. These dudes pile out of the van, jump on the car that's right next to us, and collapse the hood, the roof. They're jumping on the roof and collapse it down flat. And I'm like, fuck this, I'm out, man. Like, I locked the van, I freaking went into the bar, right? Well, one of the platoon commanders comes in, right, this dude Bill, and he's like, yo, the cops are looking for you. I'm like, why? They're like, did you wreck a car? I'm like, no, that was the Dutch guys. He's like, give me your shirt. They know that you're tall, Dutch, and the color of your shirt. So I had to switch shirts with this dude who wears like a schmedium. So now I got like this baby blue, little teeny tiny shirt on. He's wearing my shirt, looking like he's like a gangbanger or something, because it's all baggy, right? So he's like, leave the van here. We'll come get it tomorrow. So I'm like, all right, cool. Next day, I gotta go get the van. So I go down to the van, go downtown, and there's a boot on the van, right? So I'm like, oh, this ain't good. And I can't pull the boot off. So I had my jiggle keys and lockpick set with me, and there was a Toyota pickup truck on the other side of the parking lot. So I got it open, got it started up, and there was a chain in the back of it. So I backed up to the van, put the chain on the boot, yanked the boot off the van, and then fucking threw the boot in the back of the truck, moved the truck back over where it was, got in the van, left. I brought 2 other dudes with me. Now, the one dude is like, I'm gonna go find somebody, right? And we didn't know where, my other buddy, we didn't know where he went, right? Well, unbeknownst to us, he went to the police station to see if he could get him to remove the boot, which, why would you do that? I don't know. Not very reconly at all. I have no idea why you do that. But me and my other buddy, we went back to the base. So I go up to the duty. I'm like, hey, look, because we're leaving the next day, going back to America. I'm like, look, do not let anybody check this van out, ever, right? From now until we leave, don't let them check it out. Like, roger that, Staff Sergeant, roger that, right? It's like a standing order, right? In my brain. Well, our platoon commander checks the van out probably 20 minutes later, because he's gonna go do some shopping downtown. He went and parked it 1 spot away from where I had just stolen the van from earlier, like an hour ago, right? Well, the other dude that we left downtown, he'd gone to the police station. And he'd come back with the cops. And the cops are like, there's no van. Where's the van? Where's the boot? What did you do? Right? And he's like, I don't have any idea. I don't know where my friends are. I wasn't driving the van last night. I don't know where it is. It was just right here. The boot was on it, right? They find the boot in that truck. And then all of a sudden, here comes frickin' our platoon commander, parks 1 spot down from where it was parked before, and the cops are still loitering around. So they go up to him, they're like, you stole the van. He's like, I didn't steal shit. They're like, you stole the van. He's like, I didn't steal anything. I just got this out of the motor pool. Did you drive this van last night? He's like, no, I didn't. He's like, I just went to the motor pool, checked this van out, and here I am. And they're like, something's not right. And he's like, look, man, we're leaving tomorrow. Like, what's the big deal? Right? And they're like, you know, okay, something's not right here, but whatever, we got nothing. He comes back and he's like, team leaders, bring it in. What happened with the van? He's on my board now. My platoon commander, that platoon commander's on the board for the reason now. He's a lawyer too. So I'm like, dude, why? How is it? You can't make that up. You know what I mean? So me and Kevin, right? He got married like a couple days after I did. So and he had just had his first kid. So like here we're like, all right, look at us. We're all mature now. Like, but we're both married, you know, kids, you know, we're mature, right? So we're in Dubai. We had overnight libo. The only place you can drink in Dubai is at the hotel. So we're at the Marriott. We're eating dinner, right? And we see all these chicks going in this club called Club Rattlesnake, right? And we're like, what the hell is going on there, man? We get done eating. I'm like, let's go check it out, man. Like, curiosity's killing me, right? It's like, it's not even like late. It's like maybe 5 p.m., you know? Man, it was like that Tupac song, All Eyes on Me. Like, we walked in there, and there was like every make and model of female in this world in that place, and they were all looking at us like, ah, like the spotlight on me right now. Like, ah. We walk up to the bar, right, and order some drinks, and this like Russian girl comes up to me, and she's like, you order me Red Bull vodka, yes? I'm like, sure. I order one. I'm like, oh, you know, bad move, Coop. Bad move, buddy, right? So drinking this Red Bull vodka, this chick's drinking Red Bull vodka, another chick comes walking up. There's literally one other dude in this whole entire place. Like, what do you want? There's freaking white chicks in there, Ukrainian or Russians, right? There's Asian chicks, there's black chicks, there's half makes and models, right? Like, you want a Blasian chick? There's a Blasian chick in there. Like, there's all crazy in there. There's like freaking 60, 70 girls in there, right? And I'm like, yeah, me and Kevin are like, oh yeah, dude, we know what's going on now. Like, I drank that drink. I go, hey, we got to get out of here, bro. He's like, yes, we do. So we rolled out. Rolled out, man. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's that note, and like straight up, man. And I'm like, huh, man. Straight up rolled out, dude. And I'm like, dude, I'm glad we got out of there, man. He's like, yeah, no kidding. We had some, you know, libo incidences, right? So we cross-decked over to the Whitby Island after we left Qatar. So the guys I had with me, I can't remember where the big deck was, but they sent us over to the Whitby Island, which is the small ship in the ARG. They're ported up in Dubai. And when we were in Dubai with the big deck, that was a huge area, right? Food, you get some custom-made suits made, right? It's the only reason I have very nice threads, custom suits there, right? All kinds of shops and all this stuff. Well, when the Whitby Island pulls in there, all they had open was like one food truck, one or two food trucks, the laundry, and then they brought this big freaking gee-dunk, like a mobile, like mini PX thing, but it was like the ports version of it, you know? And they were selling liquor. And when we had done beer on the pier with the big deck, there was no liquor. There was beer and there was wine, right? No liquor. Back in the day, I used to be a booze hound, like big time. But in this port, for whatever reason, I legitimately had like 2 drinks, right? I think I had 2 glasses of wine. And I was doing my laundry. Bunch of the dudes from the Grunts, I think it was Golf Company, again, or Echo, I don't know, whatever, don't matter, right? But their company gunny and their platoon sergeant, everyone there, they're getting fucked diddly up, right? That's how, like, the company gunny was throwing up all over the freaking picnic table, right? Like, these dudes are getting, like, they were a mess. But a couple of the guys that I brought with were getting tuned up too, and one in particular. One of the shore patrol comes out to me, is like, hey, is that one of your guys over there? I'm like, yeah, that's one of my guys, you know, and like, hey, you know, he's out of control. You need to, you know, get him back up on the boat. I'm like, all right, no problem, you know? So I go over to the dude, and he's being freaking, you know, fuck you, Coop. And I'm like, dude, time for you to go up to the boat, right? And he's like he just can't even stand up, but he's got enough energy to talk shit to me. So I'm like, yeah, I got you, bro. So I grab him, Firemen's carry him, right? I'm going up the gangplank, so I'm just dinging his head off the little things on the way up there, like ding, ding, ding. Go to sign in, and the CDO, like the chief duty officer, he's like, hey, I need this Marine to stand up on his own, or I need to bring him to medical. All right, I'm like, well, I can tell you right now that he can't stand up on his own. And he's like, well, you need to get him to stand up on his own. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I'm like, get him down, like rest him up against a little freaking post. I go, hey, you need to stand still for like 2 seconds. Can you do that? He's like, yeah, right? So I'm like, here we go. I let him go. He stood there, and he's like, and I grab him, I'm like, all right, is that good enough for you? Right? And it wasn't good enough, right? And they're like, oh, we need to call medical, blah, blah, right? I'm like, look, you don't need to call medical. We've got our little living area. I'll make sure I got a watch on him all night, right? Everything's gonna be cool, man. And he's like, no, absolutely not. We need to get medical. Medical's on their way out there right now. Well, the freaking medical comes out, and they come out, right? And they're like, you know, we don't know who the flip they are. Meanwhile, I have my SARC with me, like my, you know, the guy who's an 18 Delta. Freaking guy's pretty much a PA, like military version of PA. This guy can do surgeries on people in foreign countries. He's a little bit inebriated, but it's really kind of neither here nor there. The medical comes out, and they're making a big stink about it, and they grab him out of my hands, right? And then the medical people, I'm like, hey, don't let him go, don't let him go, right? And then they let him go. So this dude just falls back and just smokes his head on the non-skid, right? Like, bink, like you could hear it loud, right? So now I'm like getting pissed off. What the fuck are you doing, right? Like, what is your problem right now? Like, I told you what this dude, what's going on, right? You're escalating the situation, the whole situation escalating. Plus I got some dudes from my platoon that are yelling behind me, talking shit, right? Like some of the most crazy drunken comments I've ever heard in my time in the Marine Corps, right? Like, so the situation's like getting out of control, like real quick. You know what I mean? Like people are yelling, right? My dude already fucking slammed his head on the ground, right? Freaking my SARC's now pissed off and freaking out, right? And then the freaking senior chief comes out, right? So they freaking just bam, haul him in the medical without saying anything to me. I'm still getting yelled at by the CDO, right? I'm like, look, dude, I'm sober, right? I had 2 drinks all night. I'm telling you right now that this whole situation just escalated. Plus dudes in my platoon are acting a fool, right? Yelling crazy comments like I'm not even just insane comments, like just some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard. Like they just hauled him in the medical. So I'm like, all right. And the dude's team leader happened to be with me, like doing this training evolution that we're doing. So frickin', I'm like, I'm gonna go find frickin' Josh, and we're gonna go figure this out. Well, my SARC, Nick, had already gone into the medical, right? So they went into the medical. And while the time it took for me to get the team leader and find medical, because I didn't know where the frick it was on this boat, right? By the time I got there, this dude, the Marine who was passed out and blacked out, he woke up, took a piss in the corner of medical, told the female senior chief that she was a B, and a whole bunch of other terrible things, right? Because he don't know what's going on, he's blacked out. And then they start giving him meds. Right, they're giving him the wrong meds that like interact negatively. I don't remember what it is right now, but whatever meds that they gave him, my SARC, Nick, was freaking out because it does not go with alcohol, right? So he's losing his mind, and he's calling the senior chief a dumb bee, right? She don't know what she's doing. He's stringing dip spit all over freaking medical, right? And by the time I got back down there, so I find his team leader, Josh, right? I'm like, hey, go take care of your guy, because like, I'm washing my hands of this craziness, right? Because on top of that, my ATL was in where we were sleeping, taking a leak all over his rack, right? So I already had that when I had that to deal with too, right? I'm like, go deal with your guy. So then Josh goes down there, right? And then he insults the senior chief too, right? Finally, they like literally freaking flex cuff this dude, the drunk dude, right? And like finally get everything de-escalated, right? My ATL's pissing on his rack. I took a video, I thought it was funny, but thank goodness it wasn't my rack, you know what I mean? Right, so I'm like, all right, man, I'm done with today, man. I'm done with today. And the Whitby Island, we were sleeping on cots in some broom closet, like a big broom closet. Not even rack. We didn't even have racks, right? We're in some dirty freaking broom closet, right? And I'm like, whatever, man, you know, whatever. Like, let's just do this. Let's get out of here. Next morning, I wake up, and the first sergeant that was on that boat like calls me, or gets a hold of me, and starts reading me the riot act, telling me I'm a piece of shit, right? That I assaulted freaking the CDO, right? That I did all this stuff. I'm like, yo, time out, bro. Time out. That's not what happened at all. Let me tell you about what happened, right? Let me tell you about how things escalated. Let me tell you that I was the freaking one, only sober one, right? And he was like, okay. Let's do this. You and the drunk Marine, Troy, you guys come in. You apologize to the senior chief. She's willing to just let it go, right? I'm like, deal. Okay, deal. Went in there, say, look, sorry about what happened last night, right? Freaking blah, blah, right? The dude choose me out, right? And I'm like, all right, I'll take the lick, no big deal. And then we thought it was gonna be good. Nope. The MEU does an investigation. So we go back landside because we're training the Emiratis on how to do hydrographic surveys, which number one, they can't swim for shit. And two, they don't care about doing hydrographic surveys at all. Doing hydrographic surveys, we mark the beach perfectly, but the Navy, right, in their infinite wisdom and excellence, they're like, hey, your guys' hydrographic survey done the hard way, like we're diving down, getting bottom samples, like the freaking lines, like this is how deep it is, this is the gradient, right? All this stuff we did it the old-fashioned way, right? No technology, just did the old grease boards and the whole deal, right? Send in this real detailed survey because we had to show the Emiratis how to do it. Well, the Navy's like, well, we just did all our sonar stuff and everything's good. LCU comes up, 100 yards north of Wright Beach, drop the ramp, tank goes off, goes underwater. Sank a tank in like 20 feet of water. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, an AAV sank in like 60 feet of water too, and that's still sitting there, I think, or 80 feet, 90 feet, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so an AAV sank, right? So we're ashore, right? Some major comes ashore, like, yeah, I'm here to do an investigation. We're like, on what? Like, oh, on what happened on the Whitby Island, right? So I'm getting investigated for all these insane charges, shit that I didn't even do. Right, and like legitimately, when you read the report, like when he was done, this is why, like after this event, I never signed an investigation again. Never signed nothing. I'll talk to people, but I won't sign nothing. You're not taking nothing. Don't care. Not doing it. Nope. No, because it's all bullshit. Right. So I tell them exactly what happened. Right. And then for some reason, the report says that I was drunk and out of control. Right, and I was yelling at people. I was doing all this stuff, like all the comments that my dudes in my platoon were making to the CDO and all that were being attributed to me, right? And then they recommended me for NJP. So then we get back to the big deck a while later, right? And I said to Kevin, I go, yo, man, can you go talk to Sergeant Major, MEU Sergeant Major? Because this is bullshit, bro. None of this happened, right? Like I tried to keep everything calm. I was actually not drinking, right? I had 2 drinks like at like 1,700, and this went down at like 2,300. The entire company staff of that freaking company was hammered, throwing up on themselves, acting a fool, right? And I'm like the lone sober ranger out there, you know? And so anyways, we go talk to the MEU Sergeant Major, and I'm like, hey, Sergeant Major, do I get to have a say here? Because this is all bullshit, right? And he was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Right, and the sergeant, that MEU Sergeant Major was an awesome dude, Chapman. That guy he was a good leader, right? He was like he was a good dude, and he looked out for his men. He's like, here's what I'm doing. I'm gonna talk to the boss. You're gonna go in there. He's gonna read you your rights. He's gonna go through he's gonna go through a 6105, right? I'm gonna take the 6105, and I'm gonna put it in my desk if you do shore patrol for the next 2 ports. It's a done deal, easy. That's the easy way to get out of that, cool. Right, shook hands, went in there, CO reads me the riot act, freaking go out, Sergeant Major's like, yep, done. So when we went to Lisbon, I had to do shore patrol for a couple days, and then in Jordan, actually Jordan was first. I was shore patrol when we were in Aqaba, and then, then I was shore patrol for a night in Lisbon, and I was like, oh, shore patrol's actually all right. Then I got selected for Force Recon Team Leader of the Year in 2012. As well, so it was like the pinnacle. You know, I kind of ran into a conundrum, really. You know, because like ever since I'd worked that first Force platoon, I've always wanted to be a Force Recon team leader, right? And like back then, you don't really like set your goal patterns out the way you should have, right? Well, I just accomplished my goal, my lifelong dream of being a Force Recon team leader, right? And I got team leader of the year, right? So I obviously did like pretty good at it. You know, I'm like, okay, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I'm like, shit, I'll be an instructor at SOTG, right? Like that's the next thing I could think to do. Like here, let me impact the community in a positive manner, right? By teaching these guys everything that I know, or, you know, from reconnaissance and surveillance and shooting and CQB and VBSS and all that stuff. So that's where I went after Force Company, was to SOTG to work there. I got to help make an impact on a lot of dudes' careers that I've seen over the years, guys that were students of mine. We put out some very good shooters while we were there. I got to help rewrite, like we did a couple curriculum reviews while we were there. So we rewrote the curriculum for the reconnaissance and surveillance course, the close quarters tactics course, and VBSS and all the courses there. So I got to help write the CQB handbook and make a direct impact on the community that, you know, I love. So that was awesome. I got to shoot a lot. So all that stuff is great. Bad thing is that we were constantly understaffed and undermanned. And West Coast loves Recon Marines, East Coast hates Recon Marines. And our command there, the colonel was an old First Force guy, sniper, and great dude. But the AOIC there was a piece of garbage. And there are a couple other key figures in the command that despised us. The AOIC, right, Winston Tierney, that's his name, and I don't really care because he's the worst Marine officer I've ever encountered in my entire career, right? The dude like set out to ruin Recon Marines' careers, and that's because when he was a captain, he got fired from 2 separate force platoons, right? So this dude had a personal axe to grind with dudes, and a couple of my friends, guys who said I'll stay in for 30 years, left there and retired at 20, or he tried to ruin their career by make sure that they got bad fit reps leaving, right? They just constantly wanted to fuck with us. So that's the part that sucked, right? Is that we're here busting our hump. We do the most high risk training out of everyone, and we just get fucked with, you know, and that's not okay. And one of the direct reasons to why my career kind of came to like an end that it did, because while I was there, I got court-martialed. I had bought some SAPI plates in freaking Vietnam while we were doing some training there, right? Receipt. Got a receipt for it, all that. And then while I was at SOTG, we'd get a bunch of gear to test all the time. So I got a set of SAPI plates, VBSS test SAPIs, 2.5 pounds. They float, right? They're awesome. 2.5 pounds. Can you imagine wearing that? 2.5 pounds on each side? It's like heaven, you know? So I got those, and so I freaking sold the old plates I had. Well, I sold them to an undercover NCIS agent. So they start an investigation on me. Investigation goes on for close to 2 years. Like people in the like command are like leaving, right? Like that's how long it was. Find out like they're gonna take it to court martial, right? So I get lawyers, I hire a PI, right? I got a stack of paperwork that thick of dude, sergeant majors, colonels, you name it. Who's who in the zoo? Army, Marines, anywhere from North Carolina to Virginia, right? In that area, selling the exact same stuff. I had the freaking sergeant major of Marine Corps Installations East. Pictures of him selling Mitch helmets and stuff on there. I find out day of the court martial that the prosecutor had recommended a 6105 for me on that one occasion, but 5. Right, so I call the colonel, and he's like, stop the court martial. They were like, nope, not doing it. Because SOTG didn't have convening authority, we fell under MHG, and that colonel said for it to go. Well, who really said for it to go was Winston Tierney and the ADJ at MHG, right? Lieutenant Colonel Flatley, right? So these two are the ones who made this happen, right? So we go in there. Now, they tried to seat a full jury against me, not of my peers, by the way. 003 is on there, 03 anything, right? Tried to seat a full jury, which is very uncommon because I had the middle court martial. And we just, as a defense, we freaking crushed the prosecution, right? Like, crushed them. They didn't allow the receipts in the evidence or the stack of stuff from my PI in the evidence. When they did their, they went out and deliberated, right? They deliberated for like 8 hours. They came back, found me guilty. Right? So I'm like, oh shit. this is not good, right? I'm about, like, dude, I've got zero bad paperwork in my record, right? And I just got found guilty at a court martial. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucked now. We do the sentencing hearing, right? And the sentencing hearing, they relaxed the rules of evidence, and they went in, deliberated for 10 minutes, and then came out, right? So the worst thing that could have happened to me was like getting busted down the sergeant, getting the big chicken dinner. So these dudes came out, they deliberated for 10 minutes, so I thought I was done. You know what I mean? I was like ready to rip my chevrons off my Charlie shirt right there. Those dudes gave me an $835 fine, and that was it. That's exactly what NCIS had paid me. So they saw the receipt in live and in color and all that other stuff, and they were like, oh yeah, we screwed up. I asked my lawyer, I'm like, what do I do now? He's like, go back to work. You'll never get promoted again, but you're good. You can retire. 2 weeks later, the head juror was sitting in my classroom for blue-green integration at SOTG, and he looked like he saw a ghost. So on the first break, I had him go outside, and I was like, hey man, what happened, right? There's one thing that they don't record for a court martial, and that's the jury debrief. And he was like, I'll tell you exactly what happened. The warrant officers on your panel wanted to see you burn. They don't like Recon Marines. They didn't like any of the witnesses that you brought in, your character witnesses. They thought you were arrogant. They thought all of you were arrogant. All Recon Marines that came in were arrogant, and they wanted to see you burn. Word for word, that's exactly what he told me. He goes, and then when we saw all that stuff, when we saw all the evidence in person, right? Because they offered to bring in the Mickey East Sergeant Major, and I should have done that, but I didn't, right? I should have, right? Probably would have been found not guilty. I don't know. The judge said if it was judge alone, he wouldn't have found me guilty, right? And then, so they saw all that. He's like, and then they realized that they could only give you that fine, pay back what NCIS gave you, because they were wrong. I mean, there's so much, I could talk for an hour just about that process and how it's so fucked up, right? And how it's a flawed system and all that. But at the end of the day, got an $835 fine, and that was it. And that court martial probably cost the government $250,000. That's what my lawyers estimated, between manpower, flights there, all the crap. Dodged that bullet, but I wasn't done yet, because the MHG, right, they wanted to ad set me for staff NCO misconduct. I went in there and talked to Sergeant Major, right, and I was friends with the freaking Sergeant Major at the MEF, right? He was my first sergeant from the invasion. And I was like, hey, look, Sergeant Major, why are you trying to ad set me? They're like, oh, staff NCO misconduct, that's the general's policy. I said, it's not the general's policy. I looked up the general's policy. There is no policy on this. My lawyers are calling the ADJ, telling her that it is illegal. They're violating my rights, and they're violating this UCMJ by trying to do this. And he's like, what do you want me to do? That's what the Sergeant Major tells me. What do you want me to do? I'm like, hey, you're the senior enlisted advisor to the commander. Go be an advisor and advise him not to do this, because it's wrong, period. Right? Everything, this whole situation was wrong. You know what I mean? So I'd already been doing medical stuff throughout this process. Like, I should have been medically retired after my accident, but I didn't. And I had, got blown up in Afghanistan a couple times, and had like 4 knee surgeries. I got like a lot of, degenerative discs in my neck, back, like compression fractures, all this laundry list of stuff, right? And TBIs. So my buddy, my platoon sergeant from RIP, who made sure I was a Recon Marine, was my staff NCOIC, my master guns at SOTG. And he walked into the office with the colonel and the medical officer and was like, hey, look, here's this dude. Throughout this entire process, this is what he did at SOTG, right? So even though he's under investigation, he still was working, right? Putting his best foot forward, right? Doing all the right things. And by the way, the medical officer is like, this is all his medical issues, right? And he's like, well, what do you, think? And she's like, I think you need to let him go to Wounded Warrior Battalion, right? And then the CO apologized to my buddy and said, tell that Marine I'm sorry. If I would have known all of this, I wouldn't have sent this to court martial. I would have gone with the 6105. Straight up. I heard him. I was outside and I heard him say that. So I got to go to Wounded Warrior Battalion and then retire from the Marine Corps. So I got thrown into a pile of shit and came out like a ruby. I was only 3 years away from retirement anyways at that time, but I got to see real Marine Corps, through that experience, and how the real Marine Corps works. And, it changed a little my perspective on a lot of things on that. I mean, I only got a 1-day adverse fit rep out of it anyways, right? I would never gotten promoted, and I don't really care because I like being a gunner and I expect to be higher than that. That really kind of disenfranchised me from the Marine Corps and all the things that I believed that the Marine Corps stood for at that time. Showed me that I was just a number, right? It also showed me that the Marine Corps goes on with or without me. And I already knew that part, right? But you're always told the Marine Corps looks out for its own, right? We have your back, community has your back, right? And in the infantry community, right, we do look out for each other, right? In the Recon community, we do a better job at that, right? Recon and MARSOC and SOF and all that, right? But at the end of the day, people that you thought were your brothers aren't going to be your brothers, right? You find out who your real friends are, and you are just a number, right? The Marine Corps goes on with or without you. I found out that all the extra hours in training and all the money I'd spent getting out, doing civilian shooting courses and getting myself trained better to be the best that I could be was really it wasn't a waste of my time. I would never change any of it. But I wish that I would have taken care of number one first a few more times, right? I always looked out for my men, right? Like I said, I would never be like my first platoon sergeant, right? I would never be that style of leader, right? And I always looked out for my guys, no matter what. I'd go down in flames for my guys. But I should have looked out for myself a few more times than I did, right? And I should have looked out for number one a little bit, because at the end of the day, no one's going to look out for you, right? You leave today and then you're forgotten. Somebody else fills your spot. There's really not, like, a lot of guys are too old they're way too old by the time they realize that, and they're like, there's got to be this happy medium. Like, there's the guys who are just very selfish and look out for number one all the time, and they're fucking scumbags too, right? But there's like this happy medium, right? So you got to look out for yourself more. There's a lot of stuff that I should have gotten in trouble for, right? Like, I punched the team leader right in the mouth, right in the middle of a meeting with the CO and everybody, right? Definitely could have gotten in trouble for that. Didn't. Right? There's a lot of stuff I got in trouble for, but I didn't. And then I got in trouble for something that I shouldn't have gotten in trouble for. You know what I mean? Because the order states, if I purchase gear, I'm actually supposed to put it on my ECR card at the unit. You can purchase your own gear, has to go on the ECR card at the unit. Order state it. There's just way too many flaws and holes in what happened. I would tell anybody, if someone ever threatens you with an NJP, immediately tell them to take it to court-martial. Most guys who've gotten NJP'd for DUIs shouldn't have been NJP'd because it's illegal. You cannot be NJP'd for a DUI, right? They always say, Article 134 or failure to obey a direct order. Well, how do you know that unless you've been adjudicated out in town? But nobody knows the request to court-martial. Thousands of Marines' careers have been ruined because of a flawed system and because of a commander who thinks that he's a lawyer or judge and jury or a self-righteous first sergeant. One of the first sergeants who has a DUI, and NJP's a dude for a DUI. Would I change anything I've ever done in my career? No. I mean, obviously, I would have been more recon-like when I sold sappy plates. That's probably it, man. But I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, so I didn't care. I would do a few things differently, for sure, but anybody would, I think. I went from SOTG to Wounded Warrior Battalion, and that's where I retired out of in 2017. So my transition was not that bad. The learning curve was steep in places, right? So when I was at Wounded Warrior Battalion, I got on an internship there as a hunting guide up in Four Oaks, like an hour and a half away from my house. So I was working for a buddy up there. I'd go to base one time a week for my medical appointments, and then I was on an internship, right? And this was like, my med board took longer than most guys. So I checked in there in 2015, maybe, and I didn't retire till 2017. And a majority of that time, probably 18 months I was there, I was on an internship as a hunting guide. So I was already starting to, network, right? Interact with people, start to break away from Marine Corps mindset mentality and, just acting like a dumb jarhead in general, how it can be. But I did that, and then I also took a job with AST doing some contract work as well. So I was already still on active duty when the first time I did that. So I had started my transition, mentally at that time already. I almost started a nonprofit. The reason back then, my buddy Tony and I, but we kind of decided it wasn't the right time. The transition is after I retired, I worked for that guy for a while, and then I started my own guide service. And the learning curve is steep, right? When you spent your whole entire life in military service, because even though you just heard me griping about I didn't see the real Marine Corps, or I learned the real Marine Corps and all that stuff, we still are surrounded with like-minded individuals who uphold, right, a certain standard, right? I know what I get when I get an infantryman or a Recon Marine or a Raider, right, or a soft guy, right? We have a value system that we use and hold. And civilians don't have that same one. And sometimes you start trusting people without properly vetting them. And civilians just don't have the same mindset that we do in a lot of things. So in that part of it, it was a steep learning curve. Got more of a being better at networking and hustling, right, a little bit later on in my career than I probably should have, right? But that helped out with, running my own guide service and my own business, and talking to people and networking and stuff like that. I found you just gotta be careful trusting people, right? People aren't who they say they are. That's probably just the most disappointing thing, right? Is that you've almost died and watched your friends die and lose limbs and bleed and sweat for the people of this country who don't appreciate this country and for what it is. It can lead you to be disenfranchised very quickly with our nation, especially the state of things are right now. But when you look back and think about it, right, like I said earlier, war is simple, right? But at the end of the day, when I first went in the Marine Corps, mom, apple pie in America and the country. And at the end of the day, really, I went to go to war to prove that I was a man. I went to fight with my friends, guys like you, toe to toe with the enemy, and fight and win, right? Not go to jail because I killed somebody too, by the way, but we showed that we were superior on those days and we won. That's what I went to war for, to prove that I was a man, right? Because when the bullets are flying, I'm not thinking about my country, I'm not thinking about my family, I'm definitely thinking about God, but I'm thinking about the guy right next to me. I'm thinking about my men. I trained my guys really hard, and I was known for being a pretty tough dude and very strict with my guys, but right, we got a couple Purple Hearts, but I didn't lose any of my direct teammates or squad mates, For me, that's just freaking, awesome. And, so that's why we went to war to prove that we're men. Even now, in transition and out, and we started the Reason Outdoors, back last August, because I've worked with a bunch of nonprofits, and like nobody really wanted to do like what I wanted to do or liked what I proposed, and and we just wanted to do our own thing. I said earlier, when I was laid up after my accident, I was sitting there, drinking booze and eating pills, broken. Mentally, I was broken. Physically, I was broken. I went back in the Marine Corps. It wasn't my first enlistment, it was my second. I made the decision to go back to attain my goals, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to. That's a dark place to find yourself wandering around in, So when I grabbed that bow and started hunting, it freaking gave me passion and saved me. We take military veterans and first responders and their kids hunting and fishing. I can take a cop, firefighter, Marine, Army, Navy, and by the end of the weekend, they're going to be best friends, right? Take like-minded individuals, give them camaraderie, show them the outdoors and the healing power of the outdoors, teach them how to hunt if they don't know how, or fish. I'm not good at fishing, but I have buddies who are, right? So teach them how to do these things, anything from scouting to shooting if they needed it, right? How to clean, skin, gut, quarter it, how to cook it, do these things, right? By the end of the weekend, these guys are going to be best friends. And even seeing guys, go through that, right? It heals me too, as much as it heals them. One of the guys we took out to Idaho last fall, We just went from 5,400 feet or 5,500 feet to 8,400 feet of elevation or something, and got broke off hardcore. And then me and this dude were sitting on the side of a mountain. He said, look, if it wasn't for this hunt, I would have put a pistol in my mouth and pulled the trigger 6 months ago. This hunt has given me purpose. This hunt has given me something to look forward to, right? And to me, that's what my mission in life is now, right? Because if we don't help each other out, no one else is. That is the reason. Me and my buddy Tony Cowden and Drew Samplowski, and we got a couple other great, like I said, my platoon commander from the van incident, he's a lawyer, he's our lawyer for the board, and this other guy, Mark, and I got a great advisory board, and that is my sole mission. I don't make any money on it. My goal is to get as many guys out in the outdoors, hunting and fishing as I can, and, you know, teach them something too, probably, and, you know, there's guys out there that the war killed and they don't even know it yet. You know, friends of mine that have committed suicide or overdosed on opiates or whatever, you know, and that's unsat, you know, so we got to look out for each other. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter male, female, whether they served in whatever capacity, and same goes for first responders and, you know, LEO. They can find us on Instagram and Facebook under The Reason Outdoors or thereasonoutdoors.org. We got a form on there they can fill out, and fill it out, and we'll put it in the Rolodex, call you kind of as your name comes up. We got a lot of places to hunt and people that want us to bring guys hunting. We're working on the fundraising, so I got to get the funds to bring guys there. I don't want The Reason Outdoors to just be a little thing that takes onesies and twosies. I want The Reason Outdoors to be a big thing that takes people concurrently all the time.